Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Rama, Hare Rama,
Okay, thank you everybody for participating. And first we'll begin with Madhavendra Puri Prabhu's family members. We'll give priority to Leslie, Alan, and then I also think I see his niece here, Gwen, if I'm pronouncing that correctly.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay,
Thank
wonderful.
you.
So we'll allow, let's let Leslie go first. And Leslie, you can speak as long as you like or as short as you like. It's totally up to you. You just have to unmute. You have to unmute.
Deva, I was
Yes.
trying to help my mom. My mom is Leslie. I was trying to help her last night, try to figure out the audio, and she wasn't able to figure it out. But I'm going to give her an opportunity to see if maybe something's changed.
She just did it. She just unmuted it. Looks like.
Oh, you can hear her? Great.
But the audio isn't coming through, unfortunately.
Okay, it might be because of the capability of their computer. But she asked me to share for her if she sent me something to read. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
Okay. Alan, are you okay with me going first? Alan? He must have his on mute. All right. Well, without further ado, my name is Gwendolyn, and I'm Stephen's niece. He was my mom's brother.
Okay.
Oh, I can hear you now, Alan.
Okay, thank you, Gwen.
Is it okay for me to help talk for my mom?
Please go ahead.
Okay, thanks. All right, so I'm speaking for my mom today. Unfortunately, her Zoom didn't have the capability for the audio portion. It's disappointing. But something to know, I did meet my Uncle Stephen briefly right before he joined the Hare Krishnas. My mom tells me that he had a chance to hold me as a newborn in the hospital. But I didn't know him personally. I grew up hearing many wonderful stories about him. So in a sense, it was as if I knew him through hearing memories. And my mom loves to tell the story about how Stephen, as a teenager, took great delight in teasing her. He used to have this almost wicked grin about him in a silly sort of way. And he'd grab her towel because he knew it bothered her so much. You know how siblings are. And he wiped his mouth full of toothpaste directly on her towel. And it drove her crazy. And she would bolt down the stairs of their 2-story home screaming, "No, no, no, gross." And Steve would run after her, laughing and following with a perfect impersonation of her saying, "No, no." And so that's one story that she wanted to share, that Leslie wanted to share. And then another iconic story about my uncle was how much he adored his sci-fi books and his rock and roll music. He'd wait until their parents left, and they were definitely more strict and maybe not as hip, right? And so he'd wait, and then as soon as they left, Steve would come rushing down the stairs and turn on the stereo at full blast. And he'd blast his favorite tunes, Black Sabbath, Led Zeppelin, Deep Purple, at the decibel level that my mom simply could not duplicate on her tiny, cheap record players. So not good, it was only good enough for rendering Smoke on the Water and Paranoid at very low volumes. So I just wanted to let you know this. This was a powerful part of who my uncle was as a person growing up in the heyday of the groovy 60s. Thanks for letting me share.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. For a moment, no, you can leave it. I just need one of them. Thank you very much. And now we can invite Alan, who is Madhavendra Puri Prabhu's brother.
Okay. Thank you very much. I don't know if you can see me.
We can't see you, Alan, but we can hear you.
Okay. Steve is a person I think of as being extremely capable. He always was, in my opinion, able to do things that I could not do. He was brilliant academically. He invented things like in his room. He would create with electronics a computer. As Gwendolyn and Leslie mentioned, he was a writer in a sense. He loved science fiction and, he liked to learn languages. He was really great at quickly learning languages like Esperanto, for example. But while he was able to do these things, he was always a little bit unsure that he would really be able to accomplish them. He always struggled a little bit with self-doubt. So the phrase I use is he was a quester. And I guess if I understand the meaning right, he was questing to find what he really should do in his life. And when he graduated from high school and went to UC San Diego, he originally decided to major in engineering. And then after about a year of majoring in engineering, he switched to theoretical physics. And again, he worried that he wasn't smart enough to be able to do well at theoretical physics. He had, fortunately, some wonderful professors who supported him and said that he could do that. He would be successful. And he eventually graduated with his bachelor's degree in theoretical physics. Now you may ask, what do you do with that degree? And in Steve's case, he got a job with Hughes Aircraft a few miles from LAX and the temple on Robertson in Los Angeles. And he was well liked and appreciated by the people he worked with. His boss thought he was tremendous. But again, he was still questing, trying to find what he should do. And even after being a volunteer, helping people who, for example, were handicapped with blindness, other handicaps, he still didn't feel like he had found himself. Finally, I think when he went to the temple in San Diego, he moved back from Los Angeles to our parents' home in San Diego, and then he went to the temple in Pacific Beach, and he found maybe what he had been looking for, a sense of fulfillment, of helping others. He would go to universities like UC San Diego and serve meals
Alan, are you there? Hello?
I think they just lost connection. That was my uncle. It froze. I saw the screen froze, and then I don't hear or see him anymore.
Okay, well then, in that case, we'll allow Parameshwar Prabhu to speak, because I know he has a tight schedule today. So Parameshwar Prabhu, if you like, you can start speaking.
Hey, Hare Krishna. Please set my home obeisance like Bush Prabhupada. Om Agyanti Mirandasya Jananjana Nakala Taksuni Tamini Tasmay Shri Guru Mashi Chaitanya Manobishtam Taptamini Patalik. Swayam Abha Vinam. That's his welcome to come. Shri Krishna Titanya Punchanan Chat Vedigara Shri Surikul Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare. So nice to see you all. Thank you for tolerating
I'm
me in
sorry.
advance. Oh, he's back.
Can you hear me or see me?
He's back. Let's do
All
brother.
right.
Brother.
Yeah, Alan, you can go. You can finish.
Okay, I'll wrap up quickly. Very sorry, sir, to interrupt you. As I said, when he started attending the temple ceremonies and helping with activities in Pacific Beach in San Diego, he found maybe what he had been looking for, and he seemed very confident. He traveled the world as a kind of scientific expert that could help define why the Hare Krishna movement and creationism, as opposed to evolution, were the right paths. So that's all I was going to say. He found a way to use his many talents, languages, physics, other things, to be able to contribute and help people. And he is very honorable in doing that. Thank you very much for letting me participate.
Thank you very much, Alan. And now we'll go to Parameshwar Prabhu.
Hey, big thanks, Alan. Really appreciate it. Comments. You know, he was just a super mode of goodness person, then going into transcendental. And so I just wanted to share. Let's see. Let me know if you can still see me. I've got a little note thing here that I'd like to work from if need be. You know, I thought about what to say, wrote down a bunch of things, and then I realized that. So this is titled Devotee Care Hub. You know, he was a devotee care hub. I mean, it is really his greatest gift, I think, to the world. And he did so many profound things. I mean, my time with him originated from when I was a bhakta, distributing books, and Mother Sandamani, my temple president's wife or president time, whatever, leader, authority. She said, okay, I need you now. Madhavendra Puri Prabhu was traveling to me. She says, I need you two to associate, to be with each other. Because me, I was Bhakta Philip. He said, Bhakta Philip needs to learn how to become humble. So you put the most humble person with the most arrogant one, and then something's bound to happen good. And so we started to go out and do books, and then that led into traveling book distribution for quite some time, a decent amount of time. And he would, sorry, it's a motorcycle convention here. It's coming up this weekend. And he would, you can hear me okay, Prabhu?
Yeah, I suggest you turn off your camera, Prabhu. The audio will come through a lot better.
Turn off audio.
Yeah, because the connection on your side, I think, is a little bit choppy here and there. So I think the full audio, if you just turn off the camera.
Okay. All right, let me know if there's still a problem. I can roll up the windows at least. It's pretty warm though. So yeah, and then what he would do is he would go around and fire up people like anything to just surrender absolutely everything. Yeah, let me roll up these windows. There's a lot of bikers here, and this will be better. So he was just super fire up, sincere people that were thinking about, book distribution, and you get them to completely surrender and take to it fully, which made a serious impact because book distribution was very low that time in the history of ISKCON. So he helped really revive it quite a bit. And he also told Jai Chaitanya Prabhu, because we would always walk around, and he told him, why don't you try a table, working from a table? So Jai Chaitanya Prabhu started that and super successful. Then Nanda Kirtan Prabhu caught on, and then he told me, and then that became quite the thing. Much more book distribution. And his science preaching, is two huge knock at least one super knockout punch, the Big Bang and the Sages book, which it's only a matter of time before people catch on to the significance of that. And peer review, it might pass peer review, the biological one, is my guess. I mean, I looked at it. It adds up. It's just a matter of getting some peer review, and probably could take off in a huge way. But I really don't think this is the tops of his glories. I really think his friendship was the top. I mean, honestly speaking, I would say that he was other than Krishna, the best friend I've ever had. He was super qualified to be a friend, super motive goodness to pure goodness, super understood the Shastra. So I would go around with him and get fine-tuned every now and then. You ask all these Shastra questions. He could provide the hearing and chanting to help me revive spiritually. Emotionally, I could share my problems. He'd give great advice. And just his loving presence really just, created it was a perfect devotee care hub. And I think that's the biggest thing that people are going to feel a loss of. I know I will. And I knew other people will feel that as well. So I asked him a few days, about 10 days ago, when he was still fully coherent, told him about this and asked him, what should I do? So this gave me the ability to fill that hole or loss or whatever. And he said, increase your hearing and chanting, specifically for me at Japa, he said, and also reach out to a friend, don't give that up. And that's so that he gave me some solution, because I knew I would feel the last couple of days just a heavy vibe there, loss. And so I think that is the solution. I think the best way for us to honor him is try to adopt what he's given. And we might not be able at all to adopt his bioscience stuff, but we can try to be a better devotee care hub within our own community. And I don't think any one of us is going to be able to fill his shoes regarding that. But I think if all of us get together or not, or whatever, all of us try to be more caring, more sharing, more loving, more kind in our dealings, and try to increase our sharing Lord Chaitanya's message with others. I think that is the best way to honor him, and really thank Krishna for this extremely rare gift that we've been given. And then our spiritual potency will increase. And recognize it just as a wonderful gift. And, Krishna has many more gifts to give. And in this way, we'll honor Krishna and honor Madhavendra Puri Prabhu, which is, I think, the best thing we could do from here on out is try to, you know, try to adopt a little more of a devotee care hub and our abilities of that. And that's all I had to share. I know there's many other people that want to share, and I don't want to hog at time. But I really thank you for letting me speak, and so nice to see you all. Hare Krishna. All glories to Prabhupada. Thanks for tolerating me.
Thank you very much, Parmesh. Next we'll have Brigupati Prabhu from ISKCON Los Angeles speak. I think he's one of Madhavendra Puri Prabhu's oldest friends, along with Parameshwar Prabhu. Brigupati Prabhu?
Okay, am I unmuted now?
Yep, you're good.
Okay. So there were various things that impressed me about Madhavendra Puri. First, I learned his background, that he was a PhD candidate in physics at UC San Diego, which is a very, it's actually a prestigious school in the sciences. And, how he gave that up to become a devotee. I was, very impressed that somebody of that intellectual stature would be interested to become a devotee. I mean, there are others, of course, but, still, he was one. And the thing that impressed me about him is that he was not ambitious. And it was like he was very intelligent, by material standards, perhaps way more intelligent than a lot of the people he had to work under. But I never got the sense that he was kind of interested in, being in a position, like a prestigious position, or he just was happy to be a servant. That was demonstrated in his early days of Krishna consciousness. He was actually the research assistant for Sadhaputta and Druta Karma when they did that. Well, actually, it started off with Origins magazine. That was the first project he was working on. And they were working here in Los Angeles. And Madhavendra Puri's job, this was before the time of computers. You couldn't just go look up something on the computer. So he used to go to the library at UCLA, and he would spend like hours there every day, just, going through the card files, trying to find particular books and that would, were relevant to what they were trying to produce. And sometimes he could check out the book. Sometimes you just have to make photocopies. But he did that for like, a few months like that. Every day it was possible to get in there. And that was impressive, that how he was prepared to, be like the humble servant of the, devotees who were similar qualification. I mean, Sadhaputta already had a PhD or two. Druta Karma, of course, did not. But because they were devotees like around 10 years by that time, and he was brand new, he very much kind of looked up to them and was happy to serve them. And I thought I was impressed by that he did that, because I have a lot of appreciation for both Sadhaputta and Druta Karma's work. And, Madhavendra Puri was, as I said, once again, he's a very brilliant fellow, but I can't remember one instance where he kind of was abusive to somebody, where he kind of hauled off and just like lost control and just used his intelligence and everything to kind of rip somebody apart. That wasn't his nature. Matter of fact, it was the opposite end of the spectrum. He was very kind. He was very kind. He would be very encouraging to devotees, all sorts of devotees, devotees who were, kind of younger than him in age, younger than him in devotional years, younger than him in material intelligence. He was kind and encouraging. And that was very heartwarming. He did that with me. He did that with every devotee I could think of, and it just kept going, just generation after generation of young people that would come along. Everybody found shelter uh, with Madhavendra Puri, one generation of devotees after another. You know, I mean, like, okay, so there was Parameshwaram, then after that, I don't know who came next, but you know, there's Ananda Kirtan and Deva Vrata, and then I'm sure there's, you know, the list doesn't end there. That somehow or another, if young devotees would kind of find their way to the shelter of Madhavendra Puri, they found somebody who they could reliably get real Krishna consciousness from. Somebody who, you know, it was obvious that had really studied Prabhupada's books, read them, thought about them, made efforts to try to explain them. And, you know, devotees could appreciate that this guy was the real deal. Here's somebody who's really a devotee in the sense that he's taking what Prabhupada's given us seriously. So seriously in two senses. One, to learn it, and it's obviously he's serious about practicing it. You know, he's very serious sadhana. I mean, everybody's, you know, he's famous for his chanting, the way he would chant japa very intensely, like that. Very self-disciplined person. And yeah, and as I said, he was always happy to share. And another thing was that, you know, he wasn't puffed up about it. He knew Prabhupada's books very well. He would, hang on a second, I'm just going to cut that. He knew Prabhupada's books very well, and he had a very good memory. So he was able to, you know, remember passages. He wasn't into so much quoting shlokas, but he would more like remember things Prabhupada said in his purports, and you know, he could quote them at will. And another thing was that he didn't set himself up on a pedestal. Like you could have a conversation with him, and he would appreciate your viewpoints too, which I liked. You know, it wasn't just that I know everything and you know nothing. No, he would tell you his realizations, and then he would appreciate hearing what you have to say as well. So you felt like you were kind of, you know, involved in the whole thing. Well, I do remember like lots of evenings, you know, we did traveling, we did the airport together. That was my first kind of interaction with Puri. He became, I don't know how it happened, but he just decided to come out to the airport with me and assist me. And he was kind of like, you know, pardon the analogy, but like he was the chariot driver. And I was like Arjuna, you know, he was like Krishna becoming the chariot driver. He took the humble position and he was just assisting me. And we had a really good time. We did that for about 2 or 3 months one summer. And, you know, well, I don't remember the numbers, but I'm sure I did really well. And it was definitely one of the most enjoyable times I ever experienced on book distribution, because, you know, when you have a partner like that, somebody's very Krishna conscious and encouraging it, just makes the whole thing fun. And it was fun. And we were very successful. We did traveling Sankirtan together in both my motorhome. And my wife is busy at the moment. She probably's got some interesting Puri stories to, you know, to share. Different people have different memories, but and we also did traveling Sankirtan together, and you know, one of the like a Sprinter van like that. And one thing I remember in the evenings when we were driving from one place to the other, we could talk about anything. And I could bring up any subject, and Puri knew something about it and had something intelligent to say about it. You know, Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj, I believe, was called a walking encyclopedia, and he had that quality. You know, he was kind of like a walking encyclopedia. I can't remember bringing up something that he said that he didn't know anything about. He knew a lot, and what was, you know, most of it, he knew the Shastras, not just Prabhupada's books, but even things that didn't directly come from Prabhupada, like Mahabharata, Ramayana. He just knew a lot, and he was able to narrate the stories. And it was just fun, you know, just rather than listen to a Prabhupada lecture tape as we're, you know, driving for an hour or two or whatever it was. I just ask Puri, okay, Puri, what about this pastime? What about that pastime? And he would narrate it, and it was really quality. Yeah, he really remembered a lot of details, and so that was, you know, very good. And I used to marvel at how, you know, what a great memory he had and how Krishna conscious he was. He had a great memory, and he used it in Krishna's service. He remembered a lot about Krishna, and you know, and it was all bona fide stuff. You know, that was another nice thing. Very affectionate person in general. you know, as I said to him, I felt, yeah, my dear Puri, that's how I used to address him. You know, it was kind of like I never talked to him in a serious way, but my dear Puri. And, you know, he would sort of respond in a similar sort of a way. And, yeah. And of course, everybody knows he was a character, you know, Madhavendra Puri. I just remember, I hope Shastrakrit joins in on this because Shastrakrit's got a really good memory and he actually does some incredible imitations of Madhavendra Puri in a nice way. But I remember him telling me one story that just, you know, stuck in my mind for some reason. He was with Madhavendra Puri. This is when his father was still alive and they went shopping. So Madhavendra Puri was, you know, taking the items off from the freezer or whatever, and he's looking at the ingredients, you know, he's studying the ingredients very carefully. And his father looked over at Shastrakrit and said, "Oh, yeah, your friend is quite a shopper." You know, I was just appreciating. He was just, you know, he did things, which reminds me of another point. He was not afraid to be an individual. You know, I don't know, it's not an expression, but sometimes people are like sheep, they just follow. And of course, in Krishna consciousness, if you're a Krishna conscious sheep, that's not bad. It's okay to be like a sheep-like follower if you're following other devotees who are Krishna conscious. But Madhavendra Puri, he had confidence in himself. He had confidence in Krishna. He knew the philosophy, and he was confident to be an individual in Krishna consciousness. You know, even, you know, if it meant that he might be being perceived as being a bit eccentric by others, didn't bother him. He was okay with that. He did what he you know, he did what he felt he needed to do to express his devotion to Srila Prabhupada and Krishna. And he wasn't worried about what other devotees might think. Not terribly, anyway. At least if he was, he did it anyway. And anyway, of course, you know, I'm gonna miss him a lot. And you know, there's that expression, you don't know what you had until you lose it. And I really feel like that's, at least for me, that's the case with Madhavendra Puri. I really regret that I didn't make more of an effort to, you know, after he left here, Los Angeles, to keep in touch with him closely and you know, try to steal him back here from you guys. But anyway, I never thought he was going to leave. I guess like, you know, the same sort of thing people do would say about Prabhupada. They just really thought there's no way Prabhupada's, but I was wrong. So, but anyway, I'm okay. I'm not going to lament a lot because I you know, I really believe if anybody's going back to Godhead, it's got to be Madhavendra Puri. You've got to be in that group because, from what I can understand, from what Devarada described to me, that he was Krishna conscious right up until the very last moments of his departure. And you know, Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, anyone who quits his body at the time of death, remembering me alone, at once attains my nature. Of this there is no doubt. So he seemed to have that qualification that he did it. You know, it was textbook case. He was remembering Krishna right up till the end there. So, you know, he's going on to something better. And yeah, I'm just going to try to remember him and fondly and be inspired, you know, post-mortem by his example, and just try to take Krishna consciousness more seriously, sadhana more seriously, sharing with the devotees more seriously. These are things I learned from Madhavendra Puri. So I'll stop there. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much, Prabhupada Prabhu. Now we will have Ram Roy Prabhu speak. If Ram Roy Prabhu, if you're there, you can unmute and share something.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, my base is. I'm doing something right now. It's a little bit awkward. If I can be ready by the next person. So please call someone else at this time.
Okay. Param Karuna Prabhu, would you like to speak?
Hare Krishna Prabhu. I'm just going to the van. Please accept my humble obeisances. Father Krishna Prabhupada. Do I need to turn on the video?
What was that?
Do I need to turn on the video?
No, you don't have to turn on the video, Prabhu.
Turn on the video, no worries. I have a lot of memories for Madhavendra Puri Prabhu. I'm an Indian and I came to America to be a big man. But he made sure that I dropped my college, one of the most professional college, a school of pharmacy. It took me like 2 years to get in the school. And Parmeshwar Prabhu and Madhavendra Puri were in constant touch with me. And they made sure that I leave that school and join the book distribution. 2011, I was not knowing anything about the van life. And Madhavendra Puri Prabhu taught me how to be a traveling book distributor. Of course, Parmeshwar Prabhu also. I was very, very emotionally connected with him. He was like equal to my Guru Maharaj. Anything I have in my life, any problems, I call him at 12 a.m. in the night or 1 a.m. in the night. Within 15 minutes, he gave me a call and asked me what's going on. I was completely spoon-feeded by him. I was like completely dependent on that person. Now he's not with me and I don't know what's going to be my future. But one thing for sure, I love him so much that I I promise him today, if he's listening to me, I will never give up my traveling Sankirtan life. He exemplified how to die, even in the last stage of the life. As Anand Kirtan Prabhu was saying that, he asked, "Is anybody suffering over here?" He was on the deathbed. He was going to die in 1 day or 2 days maybe, and he asked everyone, "Is anyone suffering over here?" And they were told that, "Yeah, we are suffering." And he told that, "Oh, then we should go out and preach." He was going to die. He was having a lot of pain because of his shingles. Anand Kirtan Prabhu told me that he was feeling that as somebody was stabbing him in the ear, like stabbing with a knife, like sharp knife. He was in such a pain. He has no dialysis. Anyone who understand what is dialysis, if we don't go for dialysis for 1 week, what's happened is that the whole body get filled up with the fluids and becomes so much of uneasiness and pain that the person cannot even move. In that situation, he was out distributing books. So he did exemplify how to die. He was like a Prabhupada. I'm sorry to say this, but he was like a Prabhupada who was ready to die on the battlefield. And I'm honored, I'm privileged to have this kind of person in my life. I have his memories with me. I have his good wishes with me, and with all good heart and with all humility, I'm promising Madhavendra Puri Prabhuji that I will never give up my book distribution till the end of my life. This is what he wanted from me, and that's what I'm going to do. I'll try to do, Krishna willing, continue with my book distribution. And when I die, I will ask that, can I see my Guru Maharaj? Can I see Madhavendra Puri Prabhu? And can I see Parmeshwar? These three people are so important for me that I don't want to see Krishna in my life. If I get the opportunity to see Madhavendra Puri at the end of my life, I'll be blessed. I'm stopping over here because I can't speak more. And there are a lot of things to be spoken about that great personality. But if I speak more, I'll start crying. Better I stop over here. But last thing I will tell, that Madhavendra Puri Prabhu was not a normal devotee. Anand Kirtan Prabhu asked at the last day, "How are you feeling?" And he was smiling in the pain. Devata Prabhu asked, "Are you ready to see Krishna?" And he, at the end of before a few hours, Devata Prabhu, he told this thing, that I'm
Yeah.
ready to see Krishna and Chaitanya
So
Mahaprabhu.
he left at 8:45. I asked him at midnight, "Are you excited to be with Krishna?" And he said, "I want to see Krishna and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu."
Look at the glorious death. Look at the glorious death. When you die, 9,000 scorpions bite at you. Srimad Bhagavatam says 9,000 scorpions bite you. He was gorging and then he was doing like this. That means his soul is ready to go out of his mouth. He was dying at that time. And in that phase, who is that hero who can smile and say, "I'm ready to go back to Krishna"? If even one scorpion bite me, I will not able to remember Krishna. Just imagine 9,000 scorpions was biting at him. The soul was ready to go out from his mouth. He was gargling and he was just ready. Like his soul was going out. There's few hours left. And he was smiling and excited to meet Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. This is our Madhavendra Puri. So this is my promise that for this hero, doesn't matter what happens to me. I'm going to continue to the end of my life. I promise him. Hare Krishna. I'm done, Prabhu.
Thank you very much, Param Karuna Prabhu. That was wonderful.
Thank you. Appreciate.
Next we'll go back to Ram Roy Prabhu.
One more devotee, please.
Okay, then we'll go to Siddha Hari Prabhu, who lived with Madhavendra Puri Prabhu for many years.
I have to remove your audio. Hare Krishna. Am I
Hare
audible?
Krishna. Yeah, you can hear you, Prabhu. Go ahead.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu, please accept my obeisances. My obeisances to all the assembled Vaishnavas here. His Grace Madhavendra Puri Prabhu ki jai. First of all, I want to express my gratitude to dear brother Ananda Kirtan Prabhu and his wonderful wife, and also Sachindan Girdhari Prabhu for taking care of Madhavendra Puri Prabhu in his last, you can say last moments. Ananda Kirtan Prabhu had so much wonderful seva for Prabhu the last 6 months that completely flowed by how he dealt with him, how he loved him, how he cared for him. So it's super wonderful. And before he came, Sachindan Girdhari Prabhu was taking care of him. I kind of feel like that I'm a cheater or a deceiver, that I tried to take benefit from Prabhu whenever I needed, but when he needed me the most, I was away. So if anything, I first like to thank these devotees and ask apology from Prabhu for not being there for his end of the life care. I met Prabhu for the first time somewhere in Boston, I think 2013 or 2012. I was visiting Boston. I was a student at that time. And at that time when I saw him, it was in Boston Temple. Only had a very brief interaction. I remember him chanting in front of the deities there and chanting in the temple room. Somehow at that time we didn't interact much, although he's always, super excited to meet people who are coming from scientific background and engaging them in breaking the head of atheists. But somehow at that time he didn't inducted me. But I did remember meeting him at that time. After that, he came to Harmony Collective. I think once he gave a talk, which was quite interesting because in that talk, he spoke all about book distribution. There was a devotee at that time who was visiting us. He was a follower of Ayandar Prabhu. And, in front of him, Prabhu was glorifying one after another the glories of book distribution after another. And that devotee was like, what? Really? Because, like devotees have different moods. All the devotees have different moods in how they want to serve Prabhupada. There are so many different modes of serving it. So Prabhu specifically had this mood that book distribution is the best way of pleasing Prabhupada, and the second best thing is doing science if you can do science. Anyway, so that was a very interesting interaction with him. And then fast forward to 2017, I came across his writing, which he was writing from Kansas City. Somehow or other, I came across his blog. So I told him, because I read it, and I told him, Prabhu, why did you remove it? So he said, I removed it because there was some concern, this and that. Anyway, I asked him some questions. And somehow or other, he figured that I have interest in this kind of field. And at that time, he was looking to do further work on that topic. So he said, I would like to come to Michigan. And we said, yeah, that'd be great to have such nice Vaishnava like him to come to Michigan. So then he came to join us at that time at the Harmony Collective. And from that point onwards, he became part of our community here. Initially, I was hesitant to give him a lot of time, but he kept asking me, you should join me, you should join me. We can do this more, we can do this more. So first, how he does very lovingly ask you, and you can never say no, like how he makes his face, like a childlike face. And he sometimes puts his face down also, like I can't do good imitation, but he's very good at speaking like a child and asking very humbly. And he really means it. It's not that he's acting it. He really means it when he says that he needs our help, or if you can please help him and he'll be grateful. He really means it. So then you can't say no. So slowly, he inducted me in his scientific preaching, what you can say, service. And I was his assistant, you can say, for, I would say, next 7 years from 2018 to 2025. It was during COVID time that we worked intensely on this book, The Big Bang and the Sages. All 99% of the work was done by him. Literally, I mean it, 99%. But we both got to put our names as authors there. And then later he had me remove his name also because he was afraid that because he's speaking so many contentious topics in the book, such as he kind of, he was the person behind forbidden archaeology. And he, forcefully refuted it when he met me. He said all the research which he did was made up of pieces of scientific evidences which were not up to the par. So, and in his further research into those evidences which he had produced, which he had given to Dutta Prabhu and Sadhguru Prabhu to produce the book Forbidden Archaeology, for which he himself had collected so much money, $17,000, as you probably heard Lokaram Prabhu tell in this interview. But he later felt that all those evidences were not strong, and they were actually, like cases of where people trying to become famous, or they were like anomalous cases, which didn't really fit, which didn't really fit to the scientific checking. Like they seemed like people were trying to become famous or they were lying. They were not really credible cases. So he himself wanted to change that opinion. He felt that our movement had suffered because we have been holding on to this idea that we have to refute the evolution. His perspective was that why can't there be evolution and there be God like that? So he was proposing things like this which were contentious, and he didn't want these topics to be a cause of him being getting kicked out of the temple. He was worried that if devotees came to know that he holds these opinions, he may not be allowed in Krishna Balaram temple. He may not be allowed in LA temple. So because of these concerns, he in the second revision of the book, he had me remove his name out of the book. Also, there was another reason. We know that he used to quote this thing. I'm not sure who said it. That a scientist no, something like a good scientist is the best critic of himself, and he was like that. He would say something and later he will revise it to the best of his capacity and try to refute it with best of his argumentation. So often, although we produce the book, we produce the arguments, he would go back. He would say, I think there is some problem there. And then me and he will have discussions long, long hours, so many times. But the important thing was that he was always very gentleman. The kind of knowledge he knew, the kind of fields he knew was amazing. The guy knew so much about microbiology, physics, computers, mathematics, you name it, and the guy had aced it. He would teach himself all these very deep fields of science just so that he can come up with some argument with which he can defeat the atheist. Over the last 7 years, after we finished the Big Bang and the Sages, he came up at least, I would say, 24 different biological based arguments, and they were all in different varieties of fields. And he taught himself those fields. The person could have got 10 PhD degrees for the kind of work he had done. But as Parmeshwar Prabhu was saying, that's not really his glory. That really can't be matched. That really, I don't know any person living who has such vast varieties of knowledge of different fields of science, and yet so humble, so amazingly, so approachable. Anybody could talk to him, and he could explain any topic in a layman language to the other person, and again and again. And but that's not the real glory of him. The real glory of him lied in his Vaishnava interactions. He dealt with so much humility. Sometimes new bhaktas will come up into the room, and they have been distributing books for like few days, and he will be like you are my master. Like you are my Lord and Master, and he will humbly bow down to them, and he will say, how can I be of service? If they need any help, oh, you need a place to stay, you can stay in my room. I stayed in his room so many times, and I was like, he was so kind. And if we here in Chicago, also he let new bhaktas stay with him all the time. He was very encouraging to the devotees, really, really encouraging. That's why I really feel this is real glory, is his Vaishnava interactions. He always dealt with devotees with so much warmth, so much respect. In him, you could see what it really meant to be humble in front of devotees, what really humility means. And that is why, he could chant as much as he want. He could chant at midnight. He could chant in the afternoon. He could chant in the morning. He could chant at night, anytime. He never followed a clock. He used to have a clock, but he would never follow it. He'll be waking up at 10 o'clock, chanting through the night, working on the science thing, and sometimes sleeping at 8 o'clock. He was a person who lived just by Krishna's time, as per his service. He didn't think of the clock at all. I know that many more devotees here to speak, so I'm sorry I'm taking so much time, but a couple more things. So with him, what also was amazing was that he always wanted to devotees to read with him. So being with him in the ashram, I had to find some time. I feel bad for that. Excuses to run away from him because he wouldn't be satisfied with 1 or 2 hours of reading. If he had it way, he will have me read for 5, 6 hours and still not be satiated. I know that Jaigor Prabhu one time did like a reading marathon with him, and they were reading like every day for like 10 hours. Janita also, and still he was not satiated. He could read even more. He could hear more. He had such an incredible amount of appetite for hearing that is amazing. Super amazing. And he said because he could read and hear so much, that is why he had such good memory. He could narrate pastimes from Ramayana, Mahabharata, Bhagavatam, CC without any help of any book, nothing. Like often we would have him give class at the festival days, and he would speak for hours without the need of any book. And he would become excited, and he would become so excited that he would start sweating, and then he would start taking off his t-shirt, his sweaters. Like he would go up in the winter time for some festival, bundled up with like 5 sweaters. And the moment he starts speaking, he becomes so excited that he will start having symptoms of ecstasy, which means he will start sweating and didn't want to smell bad. You know, like telling this was very, very important for him. So he'll start taking off his shirts, his sweaters, and he'll be like practically bare chest in front of a whole crowd at the temple and giving katha in the most excited manner. And everyone will accept him because they could see that this guy was speaking from heart, was speaking from, his deepest realizations. So it was such a wonderful journey to have spent those 7 years with him. You know, I was coming from Harmony Collective, and I didn't have so much confidence in myself, but he gave me so much confidence, so much love, and which is so much needed. In Krishna consciousness, we need so much love and care from devotees to grow into a wonderful devotee. Everybody needs it, and I feel it was Srimati Radharani's plan, Srila Prabhupada's plan, that he came in my life and gave me so much nourishment. I will forever remember. I say that for a kid to grow healthy for the first 5 years, and you receive a lot of love from the parents. And I felt like it was that kind of love which he gave me, that kind of nourishment he gave me, of so much love, so much care, that I'm very much grateful to Srimati Radharani and Srila Prabhupada for sending him in my life. You know, I could have had so many devotees in my life, but he was such a wonderful devotee, and I could tell that I needed it. Somebody like him who could understand me, whom I could approach anytime. Like Pramkona Prabhu was saying, you can call him at noon, you can go to his room anytime, and he will listen to you, and he will give you his fair advice. I think everybody trusted him because everybody knew that the guy had no malice. He had no ulterior motive in giving you any advice. So anybody could go up to him and share his heart open. And so many devotees came to him over the decades, so many of them, because he was everybody's friend, everybody's friend. So, I mean, there is so much that can be said about him. I learned so much about health also from him. I'm sure we already heard so many of those things already. Sugar and wheat causes you defeat, and there's so many more. If it ain't green, it ain't my scene. And there's innumerable such things. He taught me how to be healthy, how to be a devotee, and it's his mercy that right now I'm traveling in a van and I'm distributing Big Bang messages in different cities of North America, and that's all because of him. He always wanted me to be in the van. He wanted me to do Sankirtan. I didn't do much while he was on the planet, but I've been doing recently a lot. And again, I credit him. So if he's here and listening, as Pramkana Prabhu also reminded, he must be listening. Then I ask forgiveness for my mistakes, and I ask his blessings that may he say a prayer of his to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and to Srimati Radharani, that I can become a devotee of Srila Prabhupada and devotee of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and devotee of Srimati Radharani. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much, Siddha Hari Prabhu. Now we can go to Ram Roy Prabhu, if you're available.
Okay, I am ready. Hare Krishna. You can hear me, Devavrata?
Yes, Prabhu, we can hear you.
Okay. Mancha kalpatarubhyascha kripasadubhyevacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. I'm feeling that it's appropriate and a powerful thing to begin what I would like to say by reading a selection from the 11th chapter of the Antya Lila, the passing of Haridas Thakur. This is where Lord Chaitanya is addressing the devotees and explaining his feelings and his glorification of Haridas Thakur. This is verse 94. Being merciful upon me, Krishna gave me the association of Haridas Thakur. Being independent in his desires, he has now broken that association. When Haridas Thakur wanted to leave this material world, it was not within my power to detain him. Simply by his will, Haridas Thakur could give up his life and go away, exactly like Bhishma, who previously died simply by his own desire, as we have heard from Shastra. Haridas Thakur was the crown jewel on the head of this world. Without him, this world is now bereft of its valuable jewel. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then told everyone, say all glories to Haridas Thakur and chant the holy name of Hari. Saying this, he personally began to dance. Everyone began to chant all glories to Haridas Thakur, who revealed the importance of the chanting of the holy name of the Lord. Thereafter, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu bid farewell to all the devotees, and he himself, with mixed feelings of happiness and distress, took rest. And I'll conclude by looking at verse 105, which has a very wonderful and heart-moving purport by Srila Prabhupada. Haridas Thakur was not only the topmost devotee of the Lord, but also a great and learned scholar. It was his great fortune that he passed away before Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Purport: Haridas Thakur is mentioned here as the most learned scholar, Parma Vidvan. Actually, the most important science to know is the science of getting out of the clutches of material existence. Anyone who knows this science must be considered the greatest learned person. Anyone who knows the temporary situation of this material world and is expert in achieving a permanent situation in the spiritual world, who knows that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is beyond the jurisdiction of our experimental knowledge, is understood to be the most learned scholar. Haridas Thakur knew this science perfectly. Therefore, he is described in this connection as Parama Vidvan. He personally preached the importance of chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, which is approved by the revealed scriptures. Haridas Thakur knew this science very well, and he can therefore be called technically Shastra Diti. Anyone who has learned the essence of all Vedic scriptures is to be known as a first-class educated person with full knowledge of all Shastra. I myself personally did not have that much association with Madhavendra Puri as you Prabhus have previously, who spoke before, had. I've been mostly on the East Coast of the United States, New York and Boston. There was a period, I believe, in the early 2000s, and then again when Madhavendra Puri and Babru tried to make a preaching center in Cambridge, that I got to associate with him. But I think even most meaningfully, I've been invited the last 3 or maybe 4 years in a row for the Farmington Hills deity installation anniversary, and we would stop at the farm there and speak with Madhavendra Puri for many, many hours. Madhavendra Puri, it is my conviction that he is a personality that has been designated or sent or planned to take his position in the chronological flow of the Sampradaya to affect different things that the Lord and the Parampara want to be affected. Was made clear to me how Srila Prabhupada, after 1975, there's many, many letters and statements and Prabhupada speaking how defeating the science is now our most important project. And Madhavendra Puri giving up his prestigious position, what he could have had, to simply take to Krishna consciousness is very much here as the description of Haridas Thakur, Parma Vidvan, the most learned personality, Vidyavadu Jivanam. This Sankirtan movement is the life and soul of all knowledge, all transcendental knowledge, real knowledge. So I marvel at his greatness on so many different levels. And I was made to think, he had told me even just in April when we visited that he was thinking of leaving his body. It was already too much. I don't think the shingles was as intense as it was then as it had become just now. I was trying to say how much he should stay in this world, how much more he could give, but his mind was resolute and determined, and obviously over the last 3 to 4 months, it became even more so. I'm reminded of His Holiness Kadambakanda Maharaj, who passed away some 3 years ago, and he similarly made a deliberate determination when it was clear that the condition of his body, the illness affecting him, was irreversible, as Madhavendra Puri had ascertained. And he was right around the time of Gaur Pranim. It was predicted that he would, but he chose, or Kadamba Kamaraj passed away on Chaitra Mas Dvitiya, the second day of the waning moon of the month of Chaitra, 2 days after Gaur Pranim. So I was thinking, here is Guru Purnima, Shravan Mas, the beginning of Chatur Mas, the disappearance day of Srila Sanatana Goswami. What a glorious day if Madhavendra Puri passes on this day. But out of humility, like Kadamba Kamaraj, I don't want to interfere with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's passing. I don't want to have my name added on to this Shravan Mas Purnima, Guru Purnima, the appearance day of Srila Vyasadeva, the disappearance day of Srila Sanatana Goswami. So he passed on the second day of the month of Shravan. I'm very much in awe and just amazed at the life and contribution of Madhavendra Puri. And from what little time we had together, we could say we were contemporaries. He offered me all friendship and equal support. It was just very wonderful. And certainly this world is a more lonely and empty place without him. And my heart goes out to all of you devotees there in the Midwest, Denver area, West Coast, who had his association plentifully. You must all be very much affected deep in your heart. And Prabhupada says in one place that feelings of separation, although painful, have a unique transcendental quality that they pacify the heart. So union and separation on the transcendental platform are one and the same thing, because the feelings of separation guarantee reunion with the beloved. And certainly in the family of Srila Prabhupada's Krishna consciousness movement, we are all God brothers and God sisters. And Prabhupada described how we will all meet up again in the eternal Leelas of Lord Chaitanya and the preaching movement. So we take these years, some of us are younger, some of us are older, however many years until our own time comes to face the end of life, that we should keep as one of our prayers and desires in our heart to reunite and regain the association of such a great and extraordinary personality as Madhavendra Puri Prabhu. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Brinda Ki, Madhavendra Puri Ki, Srila Prabhupada Ki, Nitai Gaur Premanandi Haribol.
Thank you very much, Ram Roy Prabhu. Now we'll go to Balaram Prabhu in San Diego. Balaram Prabhu, you can unmute.
Hare Krishna. Vancha kalpatarubhishya kripa sindhubheva patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. So yes, it is a It's a great loss for all of us, and it's a great loss for the Hare Krishna movement. Madhavendra Puri Prabhu, yeah, losing his association in one sense, or on one level. I came in contact with him about 20 years ago in the San Diego temple. When I joined here, he was living here at the temple. I'm here in San Diego now. And he lived here for something like maybe 3 years. When I joined, he was living here for another 3 years before he moved to different places around America. So I remember one time he was encouraging me to chant in front of Tulsi Maharani. He was trying to encourage me to chant 16 rounds in front of Tulsi in the morning. And I was new and I was still in high school at the time, and I was, wrapped up and busy and this and that. So I wasn't doing that so much. But I remember one time I came to him and I said, I had like a little badge on my japa bead bag. I think it was a pancha tattva, and I was showing him my little pin. And then he looked at me really seriously and he said, "That badge is useless if you don't chant 16 rounds in front of Tulsi." So he's really pushing that. And we would go out and distribute books together, myself and him and a few other devotees living in the temple. So we would regularly do that. And that was a great experience. One thing we could all note and learn from him is how he would chant and chant and chant and chant in front of the deities. And when he felt he was fully inspired or he was really in that zone, then he would go out and distribute Srila Prabhupada's books. Similar thing he would do in the car. He would read and really get absorbed in reading for quite a long time, and then he would go distribute out of the car books. So yeah, I remember one time we were out distributing books at a local college, and I think the term comes from Jack and the Beanstalk. That's some tale, American tale or whatever. But the word Bhagyavan, of course, that's a Bengali word that means fortunate, Bhagyavan. So he was resting in the car, or he had his eyes closed in the car, and a few of us were there. And then he opened his eyes really wide and he said, "Fee, fi, fo, fum." And he said, "I smell the blood of a Bhagyavan, fortunate soul." So then at that point, he jumped out of the car and he rushed towards one college student and he distributed a book to them. So, and he would say often, when he was out distributing Srila Prabhupada's books, he said that, Lord Nityananda was involved when you go up to somebody, a materialistic person, and you offer them a book, and in one hand a cigarette and a beer flies out, and another hand, their whatever they're eating flies out, and then they take a book and they give a big donation. He said, Lord Nityananda was involved there. So he would say that also regularly. I remember also one time, he was, we went out on books together. I wasn't initiated at the time still. But it was Bhakta Avatar. Those of you who know him, the dancing, spinning Bhakta Avatar. Vrindavan Prabhu's father. So it was Bhakti Avatar and it was Madhavendra Puri and it was myself. So for about a week, we were spending time together, going out and distributing books every day here in San Diego, going to UCSD. So it was transcendentally inspiring and also fun time for me, spending time with those two, because they're both ecstatic devotees and very unique personalities in the movement. So we would go out, we would chant, we would distribute books. And I remember one time we were either going to the college or coming back, but we did a karinam, means like a chanting kirtan in the car. So we called it karinam instead of harinam. Harinam, you go out on the streets and you chant. So we were doing this karinam. So Bhakta Avatar, he was leading at one particular point, and he was really getting into it. And Madhavendra Puri Prabhu was really getting into it, and I was in the back seat trying to get into it and being inspired by their company. But then at one point, Madhavendra Prabhu, he started leading the kirtan, and he was, I believe, he was driving. So he was driving and he was chanting very intensely, and he was like, going back and forth, moving his body like this, and he had a big smile and his eyes were really big, and Bhakti Avatar was there, and we're all chanting together. And then at one particular point, Bhakti Avatar, he starts laughing like uncontrollable, and he says, "Oh my God, he's really got a taste." So it's like this whole thing going on, which I've never experienced after that, such an ecstatic karinam. But it was wonderful. But then after that, we concluded, or I think they concluded, that we probably shouldn't do that anymore because it's too dangerous, because the chanting in the car. So but it was a wonderful time spending the time with him and Bhakti Avatar at that point. And I was very inspired by him, Madhavendra Puri Prabhu, and he moved on to different places of services and temples, so I didn't get to spend so much time with him over the years. I spoke with him a few times, but I remember how he was very simple in his living, very simple arrangements. Like Srila Prabhupada said, a brahmachari or monk can be happy. He just needs a place to lie down and some prasadam and some service. So he would just be able to really rest anywhere. And he'd do these interesting things where he would be on the diet of like yogurt, for example, or he'd be like and he'd just have yogurt pretty much, or he'd just have milk, or things like that. So that was and it was a wonderful example in his, as many devotees were mentioning, his ability to really absorb himself in reading scripture, Srila Prabhupada's books and other books, and his ability to really get absorbed in chanting. And another thing that I was thinking about was he was really against the idea of wasting time, and he didn't waste time. He was just always absorbed in Krishna consciousness. And he wasn't like there was no like gossip. He wasn't gossiping at all or fault finding people. He had his service, he had his mission, and he was just moving forward in that. So he's a wonderful example, and we will try to follow in his footsteps in our own way. And yeah, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much, Balaram Prabhu.
Thank you.
Deva Madhava Prabhu, I think you can go next if you're available.
I am. Thank you, Ji. My pranams to all the devotees. His Grace Madhavendra Puri Prabhu ki jai. Yeah, I've been sitting with MVP's departure. It's sad for us because he lived in Michigan for so long. And then at this last moment, at the death, truly, he left us. And why that happened that way, I think is something that it's a gift I'll have to sit with for a long time. And thinking about one of MVP's endearing personality traits, that that humility that I'm sure many have already mentioned. I wasn't able to come on until a few minutes ago. I heard a little bit of Ram Roy Prabhu and then Balaram Prabhu. But no doubt his humility has been mentioned. And I can see in it, we can't imitate that kind of humility, but we can try to learn something, try to find something to apply for ourselves. And I can see it just a complete disinterest in wasting time on something other than Krishna's service. And so the discussion of himself in any context, even basic things like taking care of his body, it was just abhorrent. He just couldn't, he was allergic to that discussion. It made him sick. And he would rather get sick than talk about how to stay nominally healthy so that he wouldn't have to face such things. And on some kind of rational level, it doesn't make sense, just take care of a few things and then other things can be given the time and energy. But ultimately, advanced devotional service is not about rationality and intelligence and what makes sense. It's about a sentiment that overtakes your heart and just compels you to do everything for Krishna, even if sometimes the things that you do are awkward or inconvenient or inconceivable. And Sri Vishwanath, in his Madhurya Kadambini, he says that one comes to a sakti, then they will be considered inconvenient and crazy even by the common devotees. When you come to the stage of a sakti, then even your average, kind of Kanishta Bhakta will see that and think, not good. Something's wrong there. And I've recognized, I've had a glimpse of that in a few devotees' lives, and MVP is one of those that it's awkward and it's confusing and it's undeniably Krishna conscious. And I appreciate him for providing me that example and putting it in my lap, that convention and convenience and neat and tidy and calm and clear. All those things are not really what we're going for. Unmadha. Many of you must like Jai Jagannath Prabhu also, and he talks about reading Chaitanya Charitamrita and getting to those last chapters and having to put the book down because it's confronting to think that this is the prayojana, this is the goal of this community, this is the goal of this practice that I'm engaged with now, is to truly become mad, to truly become irrational and possessed by sentiments that no one else around me can understand, and they become concerned by witnessing. And our dear MVP carried a flavor of that. Sitting with him over the years, two things that I deeply appreciated: reading with him, which I'm sure many have mentioned, and particularly those knowing glances, that I, like a 13-year-old flirtatious boy would make with the girl across the room that he's hoping they can catch each other's attention, and sidelong snippets of heartfelt exchange. MVP would do that with you while you read, and some sentence would come in, some flourish, some detail, some little repartee with Radha and Krishna or Lalita and Chandravali, and you just look over at MVP and he just looks you through the eyes straight into the heart and just nods like, yes, this is our joy. This is our um, climax. This is what we seek and wait for and make everything around, is to relish these little moments together. And that little look from MVP just made the whole page come alive, and you wanted to turn the page and keep going. And this the crushed look on his face when you closed the book. The hardest thing to do in life was to close the book when MVP was there, which I, cursed by my other services, I would often have to do, for, how much truth that is. Of course, that's also something for me to introspect on, but I would often only have what seemed like a few minutes, and I would have to close the book, and just the the forlorn look that MVP would then give. And I hope I can see that face the rest of my Krishna consciousness, the rest of my life, to remind me that that's the place to want to get back to want to stay, to feel sad about when you have to leave. And then, so that kind of personal exchange with him, I'll always love. His door would be shut. I would say Gauranga, and he would say Nityananda on the other side. He always knew it was me because I would say Gauranga, and then he would say Nityananda, and open the door. Hello, my dear, and the things would take from there. He was incredibly funny and witty. I'm not sure if that's been mentioned yet, but he had a great sense of humor and a very Western, jaded, coming up in industrialism sense of humor that I know all of you have, whether you let it out or not. But MVP is one who didn't mind letting it fly, especially when it was poking fun at the materialists and such. And that was a sweet permission to see, because humor is something I really appreciate. And to see an advanced devotee still be able to belly laugh at a good joke is a relief. It's a permission that I was glad to receive from him. But finally, I'd like to appreciate MVP for being so generous with the most precious parts of his heart, which are very hard things to actually share with others. And he would share it with people that he truly just met. Several people at the Harmony Collective have stories of that, seeing MVP for the first time in a van parked next to the temple, at the farm, wherever it might be. And from the moment he meets them, he just starts opening his heart and pouring onto them his deepest convictions and begging them, please, you also share this with me. That's what he was really saying. Share this with me. Not, you take this book and you go do it somewhere else, but like you take this with me. And there's something very vulnerable and scary about doing that. I've seen that we can preach from this religious place of just doing our duty of saying the lines and handing the book, like following the procedure of giving the mercy. But then there's that opening of one's heart that makes you vulnerable and puts into, danger, so to speak, those things that are dearest to you. And MVP was just so courageous and brave in doing that over and over again with anybody. He was ready to go as far as they wanted. An open book in the best sense, the open-hearted spirit of take everything I have and then make more of it for yourself. That's what I want for you. I can't think of a person that's more obvious in the spirit of than Madhavendra Puri Prabhu. And I pray that which I got to witness becomes a part of my way of being as well. So I'll miss my friend Madhavendra Puri Prabhu, and I'll miss having such a exemplary person as a sadhu and an elder in our village, to be able to count on that, to know no matter, everybody has their on and off days, but MVP always had that for you when you needed it, when you wanted it, even when you didn't want it. That's what he had for you. And it's going to be very different and hard to be in the village without knowing that safety of that presence of clarity and conviction and faith that he carried for us for a decade. I want to also extend my deep gratitude to the care team, Ananda Kirtan, his wife, Devavrata, and whomever else came in, especially at the end, to give MVP the proper send-off that we, for whatever reasons, weren't able to offer in the way that we would have liked anyway. Really, thank you to you, Prabhus, for meeting the moment and taking advantage of that rare chance that Krishna gave you to serve such a person at such a time, which we will all face, and to be in that with him and for yourselves. I hope that that grows in your heart many years to come. And thank you for doing it on behalf of all of us who care about MVP in such a sweet way that we can feel good that he went out on his own terms with people that really knew who he was and appreciated it.
Thank you very much, Deva Madhava Prabhu. So I think with that note, it would be nice to hear from Ananda Kirtan Prabhu now if he's there. Ananda Kirtan Prabhu, would you like to say something?
Yeah, sure. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So I first met Madhavendra Puri Prabhu when I was a new Bhakta Anthony in the Los Angeles temple. And I remember I remember thinking it was very unique because he was different from all the other devotees I was used to. Um, First time I saw him, he was in the temple. He had big earmuffs on to block out sound. He was sitting in front of the deities. He was sitting in front of the deities chanting japa, and he was moving his the hand that he was chanting japa up and down really fast, with his eyes closed and his head nodding really, ecstatically. And as a new bhakta, I was kind of taken aback, but I understood that this person's like really absorbed. I've never seen anything like this. So I got the chance to speak to him, after, of course, after his chanting. He said he was getting ready for traveling with Brigupati Prabhu, and that he was encouraging me. He was saying, if you can, you should do full-time book distribution. This is how you get Prabhupada's mercy. And I know he's told that to many devotees. So and then also I remember during the Guru Puja, he wouldn't like the Maha articles to come. He wouldn't want the fire or the water to come on his head or the flower because it would distract him from being absorbed in the song, the Guru Vandanam song. Um, so he would always kind of like he was trying to speak over the kirtan, but he didn't realize how loud he was actually speaking, and he would kind of shout, not in a mean way, but just trying to get the point across. I don't need that, I don't want that. You don't have to bring that to me, talking about the Maha paraphernalia because again, he was trying to be absorbed in the song. So then the next time I got to associate with him was in 2014 in Denver, and he had a little room in the Brahmachari ashram, and he had a fold-out table, like a table we used for book distribution, and that was his bed. He was sleeping on that table, and then I remembered him. I'm like, oh yeah, that's that far-out devotee from Los Angeles, and yeah, he definitely definitely is far out sleeping on a table like that. And he didn't have like really anything in his room except for a few books and a couple pairs of clothes and that table. And then every day, devotees were coming to his room to read Chaitanya Bhagavat, and that was my first introduction to Chaitanya Bhagavat. I never knew that book existed, and I didn't know that someone could be so absorbed in hearing. He just wanted devotees with him all the time in that room, hearing Chaitanya Bhagavat. And like Deva Madhava Prabhu said, like whenever the reading was done, he would actually be begging devotees, like, can you at least stay And one devotee would have to, well, can you please at least stay? Just maybe just you. Everybody else can do whatever services need to be done. So he was very much attached to hearing like that. And there was one stark memory that is a little bit humorous in my mind at that time. Um, Explaining it may not really kind of like give justice to the vision in my mind. But I remember, I think it was Shamya Pras or someone else. The reading, everybody else had to go do something. Madhavendra Puri was so absorbed in the reading that the last devotee that was leaving the room, Madhavendra Puri was holding the book and he was chasing the devotee around the house while reading the pastime. And it's just a funny vision, you know. And so I got to reveal my mind to him in Denver. You know, I was a struggling new brahmachari, mind uncontrolled, and he'd give me solace, and I'd go into his room alone, and we'd read and have conversations. And then, anyways, I left Denver. He stayed there for some time. Then in 2016, I was traveling with one devotee. Um, that we were in Utah, traveling in a van, distributing books. And then that particular devotee, for some reason, had to go back to the Los Angeles temple. So he took a flight out there. And I didn't have a traveling partner. So Brigapati Prabhu arranged that Madhavendra Puri come out to meet me. I remember picking him up from the airport, and I didn't really know him so well. You know, had that association in 2014, and then as a new bhakta in LA. But the fact that he kind of dropped whatever he was doing to fly out to travel with this like new devotee who he barely knew, that itself is kind of far out. And then it was during Kartik, and I remember, you know, I experienced I experienced a few Kartiks at that point in the temple and devotees singing Damodarashtakam. But then when Madhavendra Puri joined the van, again, I experienced something I never experienced before. A devotee so absorbed in the song, you know, he was just like blissful. Um, and so that kind of like opened the door to like that, yeah, there's a spiritual world and we're meant to go there. You know, that was my realization at the time from his association. And so I traveled with them for 4 months on that trip. And I remember waking up in the middle of the night and he would be awake and he would just be sitting there, you know, in the dark and kind of like, you know, like nodding back and forth and sometimes giggling and laughing to himself. And at one point I asked him, like, you know, in the middle of the night when you're laughing, I'm just kind of curious, what are you doing? And he said, I'm smarring him. I'm remembering Lord Chaitanya's pastimes. Um, I remember he had this like little kind of pouch that he would wear around his neck, and he would very often look into that pouch to make sure whatever he had in there, he didn't lose. And then sometimes he would take out a key and he would study the grooves of the key. And he would do this like once every like 2 hours, maybe hour and a half. And he would study the groove of the key. And I asked him why he did that too. And he said, just in case I lose the key, I can carve metal and I'd be able to get into whatever I need to get into. Um, and then, that traveling trip, we became very close. I remember going out. Sometimes he would stay in the van. I would go out and distribute. He would do whatever he was doing in the van, reading or just sitting there and remembering pastimes and laughing to himself. And then when I would come back to the van, he again, something I've never experienced with any devotee even since then, would I just saw him like an hour or maybe 2 hours ago. And he would act like we haven't seen each other for years. When I got back to the van, he'd be so happy. And he asked me, how is it? Are you meeting nice people? And he'd give me a hug and just lots of love. Um, yeah, I don't know anybody else who acts like that towards other people. Um, and then yeah, eventually I forgot why, but he went back to wherever he was. I don't think he was in Michigan at that point. That was 2016. Um, and then we'd stay in contact. I'd call him regularly and read, at least a few times a week, reveal my mind to him. And then sometimes traveling with Parameshwar. Eventually, when he went to Michigan, we'd stop and see Madhavendra Puri. And then I think it was 2020 or 21, after like the COVID lockdown and things became a little bit more loose, you can start going outside and interacting again. There's Devavrata Prabhu, Radha Jivan Gopal Prabhu. At that time was Bhakta Reed, Madhavendra Puri Prabhu, and myself traveling. And that was a very nice experience. Then eventually, I forget why, but David Retta and Radha Jivan Prabhu had to go somewhere. So then it was just, again, Madhavendra Puri Prabhu and myself. Um, and yeah, like Siddhari Prabhu was saying that he would often say that a real scientist scrutinizes his own work more than, his opponents. So sometimes he would just like sit there and seemingly stare off into space for a long period of time. And I'd ask him why he's doing that, and he'd say that I'm trying to find counter arguments to my scientific discoveries. So he would do that a lot. Uh, or sometimes he would say, okay, I have to meditate now. And then he would just sit there and kind of stare straight. Um, and then, yeah, that was 4 months. We traveled again together to Texas. We were staying in El Paso. Then we stayed in touch. He left. He went back to Michigan. And then I didn't see him again until the beginning of this year when he was sick, although we always stayed in touch. And also, one other thing is he was very generous with his money. He just spontaneously wanted to buy me a Sankirtan van in 2016. And so yeah, he did that. And then just most recently, he helped me buy my new Sankirtan van that I have now. And just very generous without me even really asking, just like mentioning to him, like, yeah, this, just through the course of conversation, friendly conversation, he knows my situation and he says, oh, I can help you out with that. So I know I'm not the only person he's done that with. He's done that to many devotees, actually. Um, so in January of this year, Parameshwar Prabhu notified me saying that Madhavendra Puri Prabhu looks like he's on his way out, and this was a little bit shocking to me. So I immediately called Prabhu, Madhavendra Puri, and he said, he didn't, his throat sounded swollen. It sounded kind of, not like himself. And he told me, he's like, yeah, I'm dying. And I said, Prabhu, can I come see you? And he says, no, you shouldn't do that. You have service to do. You have to distribute books. I'm like, Prabhu, I'll just drop everything and I'll see you. I did not know how long he was going to be on the planet. I didn't know what his situation was. And then eventually on that same phone call, at first he was saying, no, you shouldn't come. And then when he realized that I'm going to come anyways, then he was like, okay, actually, I really need you. I need somebody. I need someone to basically do everything for me. I can't walk and everything else. So um, we were there in a couple days. We drove from San Antonio up to Michigan. And yeah, he was in bad shape when I came into his room. Um, I remember the room smelled like kind of like urine and everything was dirty, which is very uh, unlike him. He would always he was like a clean freak. And he would keep everything clean. Even if there was like one spot on the table that I didn't think was such a big deal, he would point it out and say, that's the mode of ig. The mode of ig, you take birth as a pig. So when I came into his room, I realized like, okay, yeah, he's in bad shape. He can't even, clean his room like he would usually do. He couldn't walk. Um, so at that point, I was just like on call 24/7. I was staying in a room right next to him, and things got so bad. He started hallucinating, and he vehemently did not want to see a doctor. And in consultation with other devotees, Deva Madhava and Brigupati Parameshwar and a few others, we basically convinced them, if it's not for you, at least for us, please let us bring you to the hospital. So we brought him to the ER. They saw that how bad of shape he was and close to death, that the doctors immediately rushed into his room and had to, do like immediate dialysis, and he was in the hospital at that time for 36 days. Eventually, after many dialysis sessions, he was back to regular cognition. Now, these last like 6 months, he says that he's made the best, scientific breakthrough with his biology evolution argument, that he felt like that Krishna like kept him in his body just to do that. And understanding his brilliance and his genius, in my small humble attempt, I was trying to make his realizations and his discoveries famous. So my wife and I, we put together a website and a YouTube channel with all his science work, and he was very happy with that. Um, anyways, there's a lot more to be said, but I guess just like the last few days, because we were here, the last few days he was on this planet, definitely no fear. Just like Bhishma Dev. Bhishma Dev had the benediction that he wouldn't die unless he wanted to. So MVP could have kept living. He could have kept doing dialysis if he wanted. He was definitely in a lot of pain. He was taking pain medications, but they weren't working as well as he desired. So he just volunteered to stop dialysis. And so he had been talking about that for the last few months. I would encourage him to, stick around longer. There's a lot that has to be done in terms of, scientific preaching. And, he would agree, so he would stick around a little bit longer. And just eventually he's like, I'm not going back to dialysis. And devotees tried to convince him to do so, and he just wouldn't budge. So at that point, we realized, like, okay, I guess this is his wish. So we tried to make the atmosphere as best as possible so he can leave his body in a peaceful, comfortable condition while remembering Krishna and his holy names. Um, and so even up to the end, quite surprisingly, because usually when someone stops dialysis, the toxins go into their brain, they start hallucinating and speaking gibberish, and that had happened a few times before when he would miss a session here and there. But this last time, that didn't happen, which we really felt like was Krishna's mercy. He was fully there. Sometimes he would say things that you could understand he didn't exactly know what was going on 100%, but overall he knew, okay, yeah, I stopped dialysis. I'm preparing to leave my body. I have to remember Krishna. And the whole time he was blissful. Even the last thing I asked him is, are you happy? And this was like an hour before he left his body. And he smiled and he nodded yes. And so that's quite amazing. So, anyways, maybe I'll stop talking now and someone else can speak.
Thank you very much, Ananda Kirtan Prabhu. Lokaram Prabhu, would you like to say something?
Hare Krishna. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you very much. So I'll just share some short memories. I feel very simultaneously embarrassed and also grateful because only in the course of him departing and hearing so much wonderful glorification have I been able to appreciate what a saintly person he was and how advanced he was. And I really didn't know that or see that. I knew he was a senior devotee. I did have respect and appreciation for him, but I really underestimated him and took him for granted. So I feel very embarrassed and a lot of regret that I didn't take advantage of his association while I had the chance. I first met him in Chicago. He came to Chicago in the summer of 2013, and the idea was he wanted to focus on his science preaching, so his research. So he just wanted a quiet place he could do his research work. And at the time, the Chicago ashram had a lot of young devotees, young Prabhus there, bhaktas, and so it was an inspiring place to be. So he was inspired and he stayed. And over time, the devotees just grew to love him. His taste for hearing was so contagious. They would regularly, perhaps every night, my memory is not very sharp. The devotees would gather with him in the library downstairs and read Chaitanya Bhagavat, was the most common book they were reading at the time. And everyone would ask, are you going to come read with MVP? You know, like, you're going to the party. Usually I had other things going on. Like I said, I was very foolish and self-absorbed. So I didn't take full advantage. But the times I did join, it was like everyone was so keyed in, and the devotees would take turns reading. And one cherished, I guess you call it a pastime or a kind of thing everyone would do, is when you'd get to the point in the Chaitanya Bhagavat where the author Vrindavan Das Thakur would say something like, and all the devotees said, Hari, Hari, then Madhavendra Puri would smile so big, and everyone would smile and their eyes would light up and they'd raise their hands and everyone would say, Hari, Hari. You know, he taught the devotees how to relish the scriptures. And he was there for his research, so he wanted to, he had this conviction. I was touched by what Ram Roy Prabhu said, and I think it's true. And I think the truth of it will bear out more in the years to come, that the Lord arranged for him to appear at this particular time and render a particular service to combat atheism through scientific inquiry. That was his mission. That was the mission of his life, and he knew it from a very, very soon. He knew that was what he would do with his life. And you know, he had previously a website he called Science Discovers God. That was his mission, and he was single-pointed, dedicated to that mission, that and distributing Prabhupada's books. And so he would sit in the temple room during the daytime, and he would just chant in front of the altar on a chair and kind of rock. And I, you know, I said, you chant so much. He said, I'm praying to the Lord to allow me to prove that he exists, to give me arguments. He was praying for arguments. So he's chanting, you know, and we hear that you should chant for love of God. But he's chanting and he's asking for something, but it's not that he had desire to be the one to do it. It wasn't any type of egotistical thing. He wanted to remove all obstacles so that the souls could come back to Krishna and realize God exists. That was his sole motive, was to glorify the Lord and expand the glory of the Lord. And so he stayed in Chicago for quite a while. I'd have to try to figure out the exact dates. But I was very fortunate because even though I left in 2015, he came and appeared in Michigan. I moved to Michigan. I did a few things, and then I ended up in Michigan, and he showed up there also. And so I got to spend a lot of time with him. I mean, at least interact periodically. I remember he moved into the library at the temple in Michigan. There was a little room adjacent the temple, and it was like the library room. And then we kind of set it up for him to live there. And I was very impressed and touched that Deva Madhava Prabhu had the spiritual wisdom and kind of tolerance to understand that it would be a very auspicious thing for the community to Grand Central Station. Probably because there was a lot going on. There was a lot going on outside. Please go out, guys. You gotta go out now. So he lived in that library room, and it was very inspiring that Deva Madhava Prabhu had the good wisdom to make accommodations for him. You know, it's not easy to bring somebody like that into the community. You know, an avadut is a personality who by nature doesn't conform to society. But Deva Madhava Prabhu went to great lengths to facilitate his stay and make him comfortable. And I really encouraged him in that and appreciated that Deva Madhava Prabhu was willing to do that. I knew it would be very auspicious and wonderful. And it was such a blessing for so many people. And then the work that came out of that, the collaboration between Madhavendra Puri Prabhu and Siddhari Prabhu was very, very wonderful. So I shared some memories already in the group chat. I'll repeat one of them that was from Chicago for the devotees here that maybe didn't hear it or read it, because I got feedback from Radha Jivan that he really liked this memory. So rewinding a little bit, going back to Chicago, while he was there, he would always, whenever he was asked to give class, he would just talk for 5 minutes about the verse. And then he would speak in a way to bring the conclusion that, and therefore we should hear about Krishna and discuss about Krishna. So, and then he'd pull out either Prabhupada's Krishna book or one of Shivaram Maharaj's books. Let's do that. And he would just read. He even did that at a Sunday feast. He just wrapped up his talk in 5 minutes and then started reading from Venu Gita, this pastime about Krishna and Balaram dancing. And it was so ecstatic. And then another time, I'd have to try to find out who helped him. I'll do some research to try to figure out who. Maybe he did it himself, but at a certain point, he shaved his eyebrows, and he already had such an eccentric look. You can imagine what he looked like without eyebrows. He really is something else. And then he gave a class shortly after that, and the temple president was not happy, and he MVP wasn't allowed to give class anymore after that. He was too eccentric for normal ISKCON, and I don't think he really stuck around Chicago much longer after that. But reflecting on it, I have a clear sense that it's, all these young men would be in the bathrooms. We all had, like, there was a common bathroom in the Chicago ashram. These young men, and they're like looking in the mirror, looking at their face, looking at their hair, you know, and that's the nature of the conditioned soul, is to try to salvage this body, which is just a wreck of a thing to live in, but make it look beautiful. So that's the mental vibrations going through the ether, and he just cut it right down the middle, and shaved his eyebrows. Like, no, we are not here to try to make our faces appealing to the eyes of the conditioned souls. That's not our purpose. So I really, in retrospect, I can appreciate that, at least. We lived on the farm. He was there in the house, on the upper floor. He had such he's such a quirky personality. That's, I think, the best word. I remember a similar thing to what Ananda Kirtan Prabhu shared about the key. He would lock the door, and then he would test it to make sure it was locked, and then he would test it again. And I never really asked him about that, but that was just the way he was. I the inspiration I'm getting now is because his scientific work was in his room on the computer, and if somebody stole his computer, that's his service. Is He's praying, and it'd be a great loss. That's my speculation now in the moment. I sometimes got a chance to shop for him. He would always want big tubs of yogurt. At that time, yogurt and orange juice. And I asked, I prepared some for him when I would come back sometimes, and he just had me mix it together, yogurt and orange juice. He's very, very unusual diet, but again, it's like that was his style, and clearly on a transcendental level. He was always so sweet, and he really never asked for anything for himself. And anytime I would offer some service or offer to do something for him, he would make this like puppy dog like look, like so genuinely humble. It wasn't at all put on. Sometimes we put on a mask of humility or gratitude or whatever, and inside we're thinking something else. He didn't do that at all. And you could tell it was genuine. He really felt like, you should not be serving me. You should not be serving me. And but he was very merciful. He let us do some service. Not much. Like I said, I wish I had recognized more his greatness. And I pray that I can, going forward in my life, be more just less self-absorbed, and more that the Lord will bless me with the vision to see the glories of his devotees. One other quirk I had a hard time fully appreciating, but the devotees who were living with him really loved it, was the pet names, dear and darling and beloved. It was a little too thick. It was like my hard heart, I couldn't appreciate the thick, affectionate exchange that was going on. And I also maybe picked up that for some of the Prabhus living with him, maybe it was a little artificial. Maybe I perceived, maybe it wasn't, but we kind of, it was like they didn't understand the depth of affection that was actually, they didn't feel that, but they reciprocated with him. But for him, it's like he's not just saying darling, to be cute, or loved one. It's like he has that affection for you, and he sees you as dear to Krishna, and he wants to not just call you Prabhu or man or dude or hey you, but it's like to bring back into the English language some way to express deep affection. And he did that, and it was too much, for me at the time. I couldn't get into it, but I appreciate it now. And it's true. We need to have ways of having affectionate exchanges. And the best was the reading. I really loved what Ananda Kirtan Prabhu shared about him chasing down to read, this aggressive love and wanting to share his love for Krishna. Anyway, I've already gone on a lot, but I really just want to take the chance to thank Devrata Prabhu and Ananda Kirtan Prabhu especially for everything you've done. When I heard that Ananda Kirtan Prabhu was moving to the farm to be with them, to be with MVP full time, I was so happy and so grateful. It's the kind of service, if I wasn't married and I didn't have kids, I would love to do that, but my circumstances make it impossible. So I'm so grateful that Krishna arranged for such sweet, loving devotees to be there with him and take care of him. And he certainly deserved it. He deserved all royal treatment. And so I just feel so grateful. It really touched me also. We had like 100 devotees in that WhatsApp group. I mean, I was thinking like that's probably in the West, in America, like 90+% of every American male who has joined the Hare Krishna movement in the past 30 years is probably represented in this sangha of devotees whose lives were profoundly touched by Madhavendra Puri Prabhu. So that shows what a key personality he has been in the Hare Krishna movement in North America. And we can't underestimate him. Thank you so much for this opportunity. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Lokaram Prabhu. So I'm not going to make an offering personally, but what I am posting is the diary which I kept when I was with Madhavendra Puri Prabhu, which I found to be extremely profound. I've posted it in the chat for everyone. I hope it went through. If someone could confirm if it was sent, I would be grateful. Okay.
Yeah, it came through. Anyone can download it from the chat.
Yeah, so I just posted it. I'm also posting it in the WhatsApp group for anyone. I've named it Lord Chaitanya Will Personally Come. So anyone who's interested in reading of the day-by-day account of what I observed when I was with him during that time, please feel free to read it. And then I just want to make time for other devotees to be able to speak. So that was my offering. So now we'll go on to Bhakta Mo. I don't know if that's your name still, but
No,
Madhavendra Puri.
He's initiated. Madhava.
When I was there, when I was
Madhava Nimai.
Yes.
Madhava Nimai. But when I was there, just on Lokaram Prabhu's point about these names, he would refer to Madhava Nimai when he was still a bhakta as Saintly Mo, which I always thought was very endearing. But please go ahead, Madhava Nimai.
Hare Krishna, dear Vaishnavas. I didn't know I was supposed to speak in this. I was just finishing everybody's talking. Our glorious to assembled Vaishnavas, our glorious to Madhavendra Puri Prabhu. So I met Prabhuji in Harmony Collective for the first time. I was a bhakta at the time. And at first I was taken a little bit aback with my conception of who is a devotee. It was too eccentric for me. But over time, somehow I just ended up being in his room in the afternoon. I guess I was coming late sometimes to the Sunday program, and I would just end up late night Sunday and sometimes Saturdays, and just ended up with his room. He was living in Launchpad at the time, and what's the natural thing he would ask somebody to do to read for him. So it was my first time being introduced to pastimes of Krishna in a lot more depth than I was used to. And I didn't really know how to, you know, relish, but I was just looking at him while reading, and I was just relishing what he was relishing. Something that was very, very special for me that stood out during the maybe 3-4 years that I had the chance to associate with him was how simple he was looking at things like a room or a house or a money that he inherited or anything. Like he could turn a bathroom into a bedroom and he would just live in it. A bathroom that was like maybe, I don't know, 9, and he was a very tall man. And I was just wondering, how is he fitting in that bathroom to sleep? I mean, he had a big room, but he preferred that small room because it was efficient to make it cool, and he didn't have to make the whole room cool for himself to live. So I thought, well, I couldn't fathom that at the time, but now I understand that he actually looked at things really as a utility perspective, and that's he had no conception that, well, I am a senior devotee and I'm supposed to have comfort or whatever, or I'm elder, or I need space to live or fit at least inside it to sleep. So these things, it never bothered his mind at all, from my understanding. Like he would look at everything, even food. Okay, I need this nutrition to be able to continue my service for the day. So he didn't really mind what the food was, as long as it served the purpose of him being able to do his service. So this utilitarian perspective on things that completely detached from how the body was functioning or what was coming inside, what was coming out, it was very unique for me. I had never seen such a person in my life. I couldn't fathom that. So anyway, the more I associate with him, the more I started to feel comfortable. So there are many things that I guess I could speak specifically because a lot of our really interaction was over reading. Um, One thing I really noticed on that same note of looking at things as a utilitarian, being completely detached, was his extreme his his extreme neutrality towards opposite sex. Like he could be wearing like a, I don't know if it's appropriate, but he would be wearing a coat in a room and we would be sitting together, of course. But there would be like Maharaji's and like everybody like took him that way that he's just completely detached. And he always reminded me of Sri Shukadev Goswami when he was walking in front of the naked girls in the pond, that they didn't react to him, but they did react to Vyasadev. And he was just so renounced and detached, and he never felt like on the bodily platform with anybody. And he was just trying to bring everybody on board to relish as he was relishing the pastimes and I was reading, and I was not able to relish, but I was just feeling good that he was feeling good, so I just continued reading for him. And we would do non-stop reading, sometimes 3-4 hours. And at some point, I was telling Prabhu, I need to do stuff. I need to go take care of the barn. I have to clean I have to milk the cows. I have to do stuff in the farm. I have duties. So, but he was like, okay, if that's the case, then I guess maybe then when are you coming back? Like for me, it was like, okay, that's enough for the day. But for him, he was just starting to warm up. I can never saw a person with so much greed for hearing Krishna's pastime, and that was contagious. That was very contagious. something else that was referred to during the other devotees who were speaking, and he had and that was very also unique for me, that he had no regard for time. He had absolutely no conception of time at all. Like what time it is, when do I have to sleep, how many hours do I need to sleep, or it's time for breakfast, or times for maybe now take lunch or whatever. He lived completely off the charts. This was my concept, honest opinion as an observer. I've been trained as an observer in my professional life, so I observed him this way. He was completely off the rational charts of human needs. This was my evaluation of him, and that was very appealing to me. I really liked him for that. And another thing was that you could walk to his door at any moment, and he was probably taking a he was maybe in a reverie or in a nap or whatever. I never found him really sleeping, to be honest. I never saw him like really in a sleep, in a sense that I am sleeping. But he would just wake up in that moment, and he was completely like blissful in that very moment that he woke up, and he was just like super energetic, and he was, yes dear, come inside, let's read, yes, it's time. uh versus I was thinking, well, if somebody woke me up I would probably be fired after 1 hour of sleep. And he had never anything like that, and it was so attractive to me. He loved Tulsi Devi a lot, and he taught me how to take care of Tulsi Devi very delicately, looking at her as a person, not just as a plant, and sitting next to her and praying to her. He taught me intensity, how to be intense in japa, how to be intense in reading, how to be intense in my services, whatever that I accept little bit. So he taught me how to be intense in everything I do internally. So these were the things that I'm grateful to somehow, by arrangement of other devotees, somehow by accident, maybe I came in contact with him. But Krishna had, mercy for me to get to know him and, spend some time. And that's it. I don't want to take more time.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
So we're going until 2:00, but just because I know that there's a lot of devotees who want to speak, if the offerings from here on can just be conscientious of that, and then we'll try to do our best to get everyone fitted in.
I think Prabhu Giridhari was very close to
Yeah, I was about to call on him, Prabhu. I was about to call on him. Yeah, Giridhari, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dhanut Pranams, Hare Krishna devotees. Thank you so much. I know this is his team, Sangha. Then many of them been with MVP. And I've been referring, that we spending some time with MVP rather than would say spend great qualities that MVP has in our lives. So otherwise, I don't have any early association with MVP, but for the last 3 years in the farm, I get an opportunity to serve him. Then with Siddhari Prabhu, and last few months with Anandiketan Prabhu also. So that is great pleasure that I had gotten here in the farm. Then there are so many things that I learned from him. And then first of all, his humor, and then his humility, and also the way he speaks, and then the way he nourishes the devotees around him. There's so many things many devotees already covered, but some of them personally for me, I can't really imagine the farm without the cows and the MVP and then his association. So when I heard he moved to Austin, that time I'm in Dallas, so I couldn't spend last few months with him. Then we're like, okay, how can it be when I go back to the farm? Thanks. Ananda Ketan Prabhu mentioned that he's planning on leaving. That's tricky. But otherwise, where is that white cow? So that's what my zone. So he always refers, whenever some devotee is coming to do the Go Seva, tell them there's one white cow in upstairs. Also ask them to meet me. I wanted to read with them, and I wanted to hear all the stories in and around Michigan. So whoever is coming, the new devotee, he want to speak with them. So that is his Kirtan stories. When we go out for books, and then he just wait. It's like even if it is 9, 10, 11, and then I knock. Sankirtan glories, Sankirtan stories, please tell me. And then when he hear the numbers and then the people we approached, he's so happy. He just wait for that evening thing actually until I come back, and then share the information, share the Sankirtan reports. We all know we have this Amazon book distribution, and then he's the person behind that entire push, to be honest. And then Siddha Hari Prabhu, myself, when we're starting, so he's like, oh yeah, let's do that. We need to act smartly. So I know many devotees going out and doing books. That's great. At the same time, we should also use the online platforms. And then since then, he asks every day, so what we achieved something new today. So what are the scores? And then every week he sees, every day he sees last day's scores in Amazon, and how can we improve that scores, and then what are the different ways that we can ship the books. And then he personally, even though he's not able to walk, he personally walks down and then pack books, and part of our Sankirtan team. And then he's just like, his eyes glows like that when he's seeing so many books in the room and then being shipped, and he's just so happy. We can see that fulfillment that he has. He's like, so happy, just like, okay, so many books going out, and he's like, you're doing great service, dear. And then let's do more. That part just loved it actually. So Siddha Hari Prabhu often says, even though if you are shipping few books, take those to his room, so do that in front of him so he can see, and then that will help him actually be more active. So that is something I really cherished. And then obviously the personal time that I had with him, the reading, and then serving him with his chores. The last 1 year he started really getting sick. One of the instances is his room is full of blood. One morning when I came inside and seeing just full of blood everywhere, and that the blood is oozing from his nose and his face is blood. And then everywhere there's blood, there's not even room for me to enter into his room. Then when I start cleaning, it smells so bad, but he said, don't clean any of these things, because anyhow I'm going. So rather I want to energy to read myself. And then I'm like, so how can one even stand actually in this blood? So it's so horrible. Then somehow I read almost 2 hours actually in that pool of blood, and then he's like holding his nose and he's healing, and he's so happy actually. I'm like, what kind of person he is. So those kind of impressions that really helped me, how deep taste that he has actually towards hearing, and then towards Sankirtan. And then even while reading, it's not that, because usually we have different slang from people from South India at the time, that this is how we need to spell these words, this is how we need to, like, speak, because English is the common language now, and now when you go out and you should use the right word at the right time. And then he gently says, like, sorry dear, I'm correcting you. If you don't want, I will stop correcting. So then he even says some nice, like, things with phrasing. One of the words I always find difficulties differentiating bow and a bow. Then he uses, like, this phrase, how now brown cow. So just to help me understand, these are the different instances that you can use, that bow kind of thing. So these things are, like, in very personal, just stick with me. And then often he has such nice requests that just ask me, like, cook 20 dosas. And then he may just end up eating 2 or 3, but he asked, like, cook 20 dosas. And then 2 days later, like, and he gives his maha back, like, okay, I couldn't finish this. The next day he will say, like, cook 4 pounds of pasta. Just 1 week it's the same diet. I know he's messing up with his diet and food, but at the same time he's so technical, even with everything scientific and the food, everything is so technical. He convinces everybody. So I'm working on it, I need this thing, do it. So we're like, okay, what else we can do? Okay, we'll do that. But otherwise, the key story everyone is talking about. So he had that key always with him. Even if he comes out of his room, he locks it and wears it as a garland on his neck. And then when he really sick after a few months, then he couldn't come, he couldn't even open the door. Then I go morning, afternoon, evening, just to make sure he's okay. Then he need to very painfully open the door. Then somehow, I request Prabhu, give me the key, and I will lock the door, and I will keep the key myself. And then he's like, after asking 2 to 3 weeks, then he agreed, okay, I will give you the key, keep it with you. Then I had to keep that so special that, like, okay, when I open the door, I'll unlock it myself and go and take care of his chores and come out. And then even if it's 10 or 11 p.m., I still go and, like, make sure he needs anything for the rest of the night and come back. And he asks, thank you, my dear, for all your service. And then, can we read something now? It's like at 11 p.m. In the night, like, I read like half an hour, 45 minutes. Can we read more? Probably let's do in the morning. So the instance is, like, in the pool of blood, and then even it's like, midnight, and he don't really worry. He's just like, okay, read, and then he would love to hear. He got such a nice taste actually about hearing. And then many of them already covered, and also I respect the time. But for the last few weeks at least, when he's in Austin, I've been thinking, like, to go because the last few moments, last few months and few days definitely stick with us. So when person leaves, I thought of being around him, and then I even thought this Monday or Tuesday, today or tomorrow, and go and meet him. But then we had the Sankirtan. Myself and Santushta Prabhu, few other devotees went for Sankirtan event in the DC. After that, I would go and meet him. That is my plan. But right after we start to DC, then we heard that he left his body. Then it's a little tricked, but we understood that what really helps him is, rather than meeting him in person, he would love this course. And then we thought, okay, let's do something in honor of our dear Madhavendra Puri Prabhu. Then it was great Sankirtan event actually, and thought of sharing this course directly to him, but he's not there. But at least, like, thought of we can mentally offer this course. Somehow his mercy and his push, that's his zone, right? Then this weekend, Santushta Prabhu, myself, a couple others, so collectively did around, like, 35 Bhagavatams distribution, and then so many CC sets and other good number of books actually. Just really, like, so eager to like share this thing him, but anyhow we can at least mentally offer. But he's so happy just to hear the scores, so happy. And then another small point, while reading with him, even though he's a senior devotee, but often he's so emotional with certain topics within the literature. In the series, when I'm reading, we're almost like at the end of the Ramayana. There's this section where Lord Rama sends Sita Devi back, and then he's like, this is so painful. Let's just stop this thing. We'll skip these chapters and we'll go to the next chapters. I'm like, Prabhu, you're talking these things. I think no, I cannot bear this separation. Actually, I cannot bear the struggles and the difficult times that Lord Rama going through. Let's skip this thing. Then understand that emotion is for sure needed and sentiment is needed, even though how deep devotee is, even though from outside it talks so much technical stuff and Sankirtan, but from deep inside he got that emotional attachment to all the scriptures, and then that love, and then the feeling and the separation he takes them. And the many devotees also mentioned, when we're reading, if you just stop somewhere in the purport just to realize that maybe not able to read well, then he finishes the entire statement. So even though it's from CC or Ramayana, he knows in and out actually every word in Ramayana. If you stop somewhere, he will just finishes the statement. I don't know how that happened, like how knowledgeable, how intelligent he is. And otherwise, I'm so grateful for all his association and all the care that MVP gave, and then nourishment that he gave. But Prabhupada and all the devotees mentioned, a pure Vaishnava like Madhavendra Prabhu, the disappearance is also glorious. And I see many devotees in the group and here sharing the realizations and then the connections that they had and the impressions that MVP left on their lives. So that's so glorious, so grateful. And I feel definitely guilt and regret. There's so many instances where I took MVP association granted, and I wish I would have been more careful about the things that he gave to the Michigan devotees, and then to me personally. I would just say, wherever dear Madhavendra Prabhu, please forgive my offenses and any shortcomings in serving you and then being around. Then please continue giving your blessings. And thank you very much, devotees. Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you. Thank you. Vijay Gore. I'll ask you to go next because I think you're in Europe, so I don't know how late it is there, but I'll ask you to go next. Vijay Gore Prabhu, are you there?
Hare Krishna, can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you, Prabhu. I'll stay until the end. It is getting a little late, but no problem. I would like to ask Madhukari Prabhu, if possible, to go ahead of me. He's my senior, and when we were together with Madhavendra Puri, he was my leader, our leader, and I would feel better if he spoke first.
Madhukari Prabhu says he's unable to speak right now.
Okay, then okay, forgive me, Prabhu, I'll speak. Those days were are still so precious to me. So where to begin? Vancha kalpaturvasya kripasindhubhyavacha patitanam pavanabhyo vaishnavabhyo namo. Thank you to everyone. And I when I was hearing the devotees, especially based in Michigan, I was very moved, because I think under the auspices of Deva Madhava Prabhu, the Harmony Collective, so much service, good service was done to this great soul. And by their efforts, by their service, we've all benefited, the whole world has benefited by the things that were Madhavendra Puri Prabhu was able to produce at that time. And Yeah, so my deepest respect goes out to all of you, and it's so good to hear everyone's heartfelt appreciation of Prabhu. I'll try to keep it very short. I met Prabhu back when the first few weeks when I had come to the temple in Atlanta, Georgia, and that time I had serious doubts that I could do Krishna consciousness in this life, because pretty much the whole temple was being run by Bengali devotees, which was really nice in one way. But another way, I didn't think that, as an American, I didn't think I had the right birth to be able to do this. Then Krishna did an amazing thing. He sent Madhavendra Puri and Madhukari Prabhu in his Bhakta Mike at the time. And they came swooping into the Atlanta temple for book distribution. And I had never imagined that a devotee, American devotees, could be so intense, so focused, and so ecstatic. It was just life-changing. And those first few days with Madhavendra Puri Prabhu and Madhukari were just transformative for me. Madhavendra Puri Prabhu embodies, I think we all know, this verse of the Gita where Krishna says, Mam chayovya bicharini bhakti yogena sevate. So, sagunan samatitetan. He was always running to Krishna, as he would say. He didn't waste time. And Parama Karuna Prabhu, he said that he was a great hero. And especially that became very clear at the end of his time here with us. For me, he's a big hero in my life, big hero. His life is a testimony that all you need is a very sincere desire to please Krishna. And he saw that everyone had the potential to become pure Vaishnava. He could see that. And when you see that in his eyes, you feel so hopeful, so inspired. And very few people in this world can give you such confidence and can reveal to you what your life can become. He was also the embodiment of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mercy. Prabhupada said that Mahaprabhu doesn't require surrender. He just goes to people and says, you don't want to surrender? It's okay. You take this. And he'll just take it's like he has a million Mahaprabhu's mercy or Nityananda Prabhu. He just pushed everyone to their full potential. And we would I remember the first time when I saw him giving a class, he was chanting Jai Radha Madhava, and that song came alive to me when he was singing it. That was the first time I felt really connecting with that song. And he was singing with so much affection, especially Yashoda Nandana Vraja Jana Ranjana. The way he would sing it, and you could just feel it, his mood permeating the ether, and everyone was just captivated. And I thought, what does he see? What does he feel when he's closing his eyes and he's singing? And we would travel together. I remember we were in Pennsylvania, and we were in the van, and one day I came back from Sankirtan. He had pushed Madhukari Prabhu to distribute, I think, nearly 100 or maybe more than 100 large hardcover Bhagavad Gitas in one day. And this happened quite often during that trip, I remember. And I thought, oh my God, this is like what I read about in the history of ISKCON, like when amazing breakthroughs were happening and Prabhupada's disciples were discovering new ways to serve and bigger and pushing the boundaries. And the same thing seemed to be happening in front of my eyes between Madhavendra Puri and Madhukari. And one day I came to the van and they were just sitting reading Chaitanya Charitamrita, and I thought, oh my God, this is too advanced for me. I can't hear this. And I told them that I was uncomfortable hearing the Chaitanya Charitamrita. I thought, I'm not prepared. And it was the final chapters when Mahaprabhu was expressing his highest ecstasies. And some of it was kind of shocking to hear about as a new devotee. But Madhavendra Puri kind of relieved my anxiety. He said, "Don't worry, you're in the company of people who are like-minded as you, who want to give just as you're giving your whole heart to Krishna, we also are. And you'll be able to understand in this kind of association, when we're all together like brothers, working hard for the mission of the Guru, in this condition you'll understand." And we were hearing those pastimes. And when I look back, I realized that by his association, by his influence, the interest, the taste, the quest to understand the ultimate purpose of our practice was planted in me. And that way he was a guru, I think, like Lokanath Prabhu was saying, that so many young men in America have been catapulted forward in their Krishna consciousness by his association. And then I found that I carried that appreciation for Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes and that wonder and that desire to go deeper into it. I've carried that with me ever since being with him in the beginning. And I see that not so many devotees in the places I've traveled, I've been to a number of countries, and not so many devotees are captivated by these pastimes. And I thought, well, how special an opportunity I got to associate with someone who is living within his consciousness. He's living in those pastimes. He's seeing that. His thirst for it is so deep, and he communicates that, and he just wants to give it. He's that magnanimity of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is alive in him. That current is flowing through him, and it touched me, and that for me is like an eternal debt. Now I have to, as Parama Karuna Prabhu beautifully expressed, I have to dedicate my efforts and in preaching in this life in honor of Madhavendra Puri and as an ode to what he's given to me and to so many of us. So many verses and passages in the Shastra come alive when you meet someone like him. Sadhu Sangha Sarva Shastra Koy. Sarva Siddhi Hoy. So this, how to understand it, everything seems very theoretical in the beginning, but when you meet someone like Madhavendra Puri, everything becomes so palpable and rich, and you just think, I can achieve this. It's just the way he inspires devotees. It's just inimitable. It's so unique, and I'll stop here. Thank you so much for allowing me to speak. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much, Prabhu. Acharya Nishta Prabhu, you can go next.
Haribol Prabhu, please accept my humble obeisances. Jai Prabhupada, Jai Madhavendra Puri Prabhu ki Jai. First of all, again, a big thank you to yourself, Ananda Kirtan, and the whole team. Really an outstanding service. Someone like him at his final moments to be able to be there and chant. So my heart really goes out in gratitude to you all. First time I met Madhavendra Puri, was actually in New Vrindavan, and I was a bhakta, and I was staying in one room, and I go in there, and there's this like senior saffron person, just like with his face lit up. And this was a time where I was attracted to brahmachari life. I was wondering, can someone do that for their whole life? And I saw MVP, and I said, oh, it's just like intuition, like, yes. Like, there's so much taste in this that don't worry. So he really, as all of you have shared, all of you know, we're sharing so many pastimes. I think we all know him. We know his nature. So also in Chicago, we had a lot of fun times. Lokram was sharing how, finally he got asked to not give class because it would just be too ecstatic. It would just be so like an amazing ride, roller coaster, that conventional people couldn't really take it. I think that's maybe a little bit what happened. And he also generated this whole science mania in the ashram. Like, we were never into science before, but suddenly everyone was like, yeah, like, how can I get into this? And asking their spiritual masters. That was his power. He was so contagious. I remember there was talk, from seniors that, what is this science spreading? Like, everyone's obsessed with science now. Where did this come from? But it's such a powerful preaching program, and how much mercy he got from that, we can just see. So you all have shared so many beautiful pastimes. For me, what really, sticks out is his renunciation. Like, we don't really meet people like that very often, just completely off the bodily concept. And he would do, I remember one time PK and I visited him, and he was staying with some Mataji. It just sounds like no one else would do the things that he would do. And his mind was always plotting how to preach, how to expand. And that's, as we hear, the symptom of Christian consciousness, always how to expand. So 24/7, he was absorbed in that. And he would also never let us get comfortable. He would always be pushing every one of us, do more. For me, the biggest influence, as many of you said, is his taste and example of hearing and chanting that Tujamani Prabhu said. We don't really see that so often. And I think many places, maybe it's not available, but we've all been so much blessed with that living example and that culture. And I think for us, the service, as many of you were mentioning Parameshwara Prabhu, that we have to embody that and live that and try to bring that into the world. That is a great service to him amongst so many others. So many jokes. You all know his sense of humor, his jokes. To me, that just stands out as like amazing. Just being able to really laugh and share those special moments with an advanced devotee who's really not afraid to joke around. He was also really always fired up about reading about the early days and the early devotees, and that's always so enlivening. So I remember just a few more things. Sometimes going out on books, you would just see his face. His face would be so intense, like he was not looking left or right. He was just in the zone. Like, you can't even imitate the face that he would have going out trying to share the mercy with people. And we spoke about his diet. He would be straight talker. He would preach to you straight and without fear, without hesitation. If you needed to hear something, or something was not right, or some new ideas were being introduced, he wouldn't go for that. I know he had a very special affection for Paramakaruna. They had such a beautiful relationship. And also Siddhahari. He really, really loves and glorified Siddhahari so much. So they were special amongst many others, special recipients of his mercy and blessings. So he will be deeply missed. And I was lamenting very much the other day, feeling the separation aspect, how great a loss it is to our Vaishnava community. But then also Krishna nourishes us that he's with us, he lives with us. And to serve him, that is how we stay connected with him. So among so many things, his inspirations and pushing us on books, pushing us in preaching and hearing and chanting, we remain ever grateful. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much, Prabhu. Babaru, Prabhu, would you like to go next?
We can't hear you.
Babaru, Prabhu, if you're trying to speak, we're not able to hear you, Prabhu. Okay, somehow the audio.
Hare Krishna.
Haribol, yeah, we hear you now.
Hare Krishna, my friends. Dandavats. It's very beautiful hearing from so many of you, so many of my friends from all these years. And I just want to point something out, all these devotees that are speaking, they've all been involved in, the preaching mission in one way or another. And I think that says a lot about Madhavendra Puri Prabhu, how all of us, we're all very different. We're all over the world. But he attracted he attracted a lot of people, but especially I think he attracted people that were involved in book distribution, Harinam, trying to spread Krishna consciousness. And I think, a lot of us, were very attracted to him for that reason. And myself, definitely, that's how it happened. So I'm not gonna, go. So many things have been said, and of course, it's all very wonderful. A lot of us, the hearing, the chanting, the book distribution, it's all very, those are the core things that all of us, really experienced in Madhavendra Puri Prabhu. So I'll just share a few quick things. Bear with me because it's a little late here, so I hope I'm able to talk properly. So basically, I had his association I had his association a lot from 2012 to 2014. I probably had his association more in that time than I did any other person. We actually started 3 different preaching centers together, and so I had a lot of association. And the thing, that was very different. It was very I came to him and I was a new bhakta, actually. I was only a devotee for 1 year. And he was living in the Boston temple, but he very soon after moved into an Indian devotee's apartment. He had that habit of moving into Indian people's houses, apartments. And I know several times in those days he did that. And so what happened was he moved into this devotee's house, his apartment, a 1-bedroom apartment actually, downtown Boston. And he invited me to come live there with them. And so it was very transcendental. I came to him and I was a completely unpainted canvas. And so, the thing is that this was not an institutional setting. And so I think something that, is very special to me is that, in very, like everyone else is saying, very foundational, the hearing and the chanting, there was no other thing that we were doing in those apartments. We wouldn't sing songs, and these are sort of, this is sort of his like black sheep aspect, is that, some people have mentioned it. He was a little eccentric, unusual, avadut, absolutely avadut. But basically, we would just wake up and we'd just chant. We had one Tulsi plant, and he just taught me, okay, let's just sit here. Let's just chant Hare Krishna until we can't sit here anymore. And so we would do that like that. And of course, I was always the first one that would have to get up, eat some fruits, whatever. Try, I was 20 years old. It's not so simple to, just sit there and, chant for 4 or 5 hours. So then we'd go out on book distribution, and then in the evening we would just read Chaitanya Charitamrita, Chaitanya Bhagavat, Krishna Lila, like everyone's saying. And that was a huge impact on me, especially as everyone else is mentioning, the Gaur Lila. Hearing Gaur Lila in those, when I was a new devotee, it really impacted me. And, something that I really appreciated about Madhavendra Puri Prabhu is his, he was so generous. Like his generosity was so overflowing. And not only that, he never would turn anyone away. And trust me, there's plenty of reasons to turn me away over the years, and plenty of, I was never a conventional. Many of my friends in here, they know I was never a conventional person also. But he would just, whenever I would come to him, he would just always immediately, it never mattered. It never mattered where we just always picked up right where we left off. And what I mean by that is that he, sometimes in the later years, I would call him, it hadn't been maybe 2-3 years since we talked, and he was so happy to hear from me, asking me so many things. And he was just like that. And when we had a preaching center, eventually we had to move out of this man's house that I just mentioned in Boston, because people just started joining off the streets. Actually, we had 2 bhaktas come and join us because of him. Madhavendra Puri was so attractive that people would just, these college kids, they see it and they're just like, this is insane. It's totally different. It's very revolutionary. Someone's living this, okay, fine. I'm going to just live with you guys and we'll just chant and, sell books and, that's it. What else should I do with my life? So then we actually rented our own apartment, because we were holding programs in this 1-bedroom apartment, and it actually became too much for this Indian man, and I don't blame him, but it was too much. So there's a lot more to be said on all these things, but I'll just fast forward. And then we lived together again in Vermont. We actually we attempted again some preaching efforts there. And again, it was the same thing, book distribution, chanting all day. Many days, like we've heard before, he would not come out on books, and he would say, I haven't gotten the mercy of like the Harinam yet. And that was it, 3-4 hours into his chanting. And so, this is, we think, oh, my chanting, yeah, I started feeling really into it, 5-6 rounds in. But he would often tell me that real chanting starts after 16 rounds, that many times he was feeling like he had no mercy from the holy name, so he didn't want to do books. And it just shows the level of his sincerity. He had so much sincerity for the holy name that I honestly don't know if I've ever met such a person in my whole, I'm sure I have, but when it comes down to practically seeing it, it's very up there. It's like living with someone who's absolutely qualified as one of the topmost people in our movement. And so living with them, as all the people in this chat had the great opportunity for, it's very impactful. And to showcase a little bit of his just very generous nature, sometimes in Vermont, I remember I would take a day off from doing books, and I would go ride a bike around, and I felt a little ashamed by that was like some Maya, like I was thinking, I'm exercising or trying to stay healthy or whatever. And he would just so generously, I would come back and he would say, you were preaching to all the people. Like you were riding the bike around and they were seeing you with tilak on your head. We actually should have someone like just doing that all day long, every day, because that's preaching too. And I was just thinking, dude, he's so generous. Like, I don't deserve this, you know? Like, I was not preaching, but he wanted to see that in me. And another thing that, you know, I remember Vaisheshika Prabhu mentioning, he probably says it more than I know, but I remember him saying that encourage the heck out of people. And I really think that Madhavendra Puri did that, like, to a very high extent. I remember you could go to him with anything, and he would never think that you're like a bad person or think that you're somehow like unqualified or whatever. He would be like say you wanted to like read a certain pastime or read certain things, and he would kind of just take it upon himself to like read that with you and be like, yeah, let's read that together. And like, we're, you know, it's just like he never made you feel bad about yourself. And I really appreciated that because, you know, I've had my, I wasn't always like, you know, accepted by everyone. You know, some people, you know, they know me, and that's okay. You know, not everyone has to remain friends for all these years, but he always just was so kind. And again, you know, I'm remembering, you know, Prahlad Nrsimha, who also has passed on at this time. You know, the three of us would associate, and we were like three, you know, rogues basically. He, you know, he was like the most, of course, the most bona fide of the three of us. He was totally bona fide, and he, you know, Prahlad also had his ups and downs, but Madhavendra Puri always just had the kindest heart towards him, and always, you know, encouraged him. You're doing so many books. You're doing so many books. You're amazing. You're awesome. And, you know, that's just something that, you know, as devotees, it's really beautiful. And the more as time goes on, the more I'm, you know, trying to really focus on these things of gestures of love and affection and kindness. And of course, there's so much more to say, but I think that really sums up Madhavendra Puri. You know, the point that he just really wanted to give love and kindness to everyone. And that is book distribution. That is chanting. That is giving them good advice that's not, you know, conditioned by socially acceptable or not. You know, so we're all gonna really miss him, you know, and it's a terrible thing, you know, not being able to call someone like that and just talk to him, and it's so terrible. But you know, I'm really grateful for everything, all the devotees he's touched, and I really look forward to, you know, hearing more of these stories as time goes on. They're all so wonderful. So thank you a lot, my friends. Dandavats.
Nagar Kirtan Prabhu, thank you very much, Babaru Prabhu. By the way, everyone, Babaru Prabhu was the last devotee to read to Madhavendra Puri Prabhu about 2 hours before he departed. Babaru Prabhu and him were reading from Chaitanya Charitamrita. And I specifically remember I told Babaru when they started that I don't know how conscious he is, so just, you know, do the best you can. And Madhavendra Puri Prabhu very affirmatively sat up and said, I'm fully conscious. It was very powerful exchange. Nagar Kirtan Prabhu, would you like to speak?
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Yes, I'd like to speak. I also would like to request Ananda Kirtan Prabhu and if Siddhari Prabhu is present, just to kind of referee if there's any, if I'm be taking too much time, or if I'm going into areas that are better left untouched for now. Just I would ask Siddha Hari Prabhu or Ananda Kirtan Prabhu to just kind of keep me in line there. um, there's so much. Um, so I'm just going to try to say a few things, a few concise things, hopefully. I want to thank Ananda Kirtan Prabhu and Devavrata Prabhu for taking care of him. I'm sorry, Prabhu. I'm really trying here. I can do it, I promise. So yeah, I want to just thank them for being there. And I have some very immense regret for not being more present with him. He never gave up on me, and he always had faith in me, and he always wanted to see me flourish. And so he always invited me to be involved with his science preaching and, of course, hearing and chanting and everything that he did. Despite, similar to what Babru was saying, despite maybe my challenges with the greater community, he never budged, you know, he never shifted even slightly in his disposition towards me, no matter what I was going through, no matter what offenses and mistakes I was making. He was always there for me. And so I do find it very regrettable that I didn't come earlier, but by his mercy, Madhavendra Puri Prabhu and Ananda Kirtan Prabhu and Devavrata Prabhu, I was very lucky to be able to make it there 12 hours before he passed, and to be there as he was leaving, and to be in that kirtan. So I'm very, very grateful for that, and I cannot really repay Ananda Kirtan Prabhu especially for inviting me. So I want to thank you both, and I also want to thank everybody here too. It's amazing, as Babru was saying, to hear everybody's stories and their experience of Madhavendra Puri Prabhu. And I swear, basically every point that I hear is a point that I would want to make myself. I would want to say the same thing. I would want to touch on that point and expand on it and share my experience of how true these things are. Yeah, but I will leave it, to the other devotees to go more into detail on certain points. But I couldn't agree more with everything that's been said. And lastly, this is where I would really like Siddha Hari or Ananda Kirtan to just let me know if I'm going too far here. But my thought is my time is limited to speak in here, and I would rather speak on what Madhavendra Puri Prabhu would want me to speak on than what I want to speak on, because there's many things that I want to say, and I already kind of took some liberties, but there's more that I'd like to say. But as I'm reflecting on him and his mission and his desires, three things. I know he had desires for the people in this world, and he desired for everybody to become a devotee. He desired for everybody to become free of suffering and to join Mahaprabhu's loving network. And that's why he was science preaching. I would say it's important perhaps to not misunderstand and to think that he was some sort of simply a science aficionado or something. He had that experience and that appreciation of the science world, but the only reason he did it was because he wanted everybody to be in the loving network of Lord Chaitanya. And he said, hey, this is what I have training in. This is what my propensity is. So I'm going to utilize this. But he told me, he said, honestly, I wouldn't do it if I didn't feel like I had to. He said it's exhausting and it's incredibly mundane. You know, he's reading Richard Dawkins, all these science books. As other devotees have said, you know, for hours and hours, his ex-wife or wife would say, he would just read science books from libraries for like 4 hours, 5 hours a day. And this is somebody who had the higher taste. They were relishing Krishna Lila. He wanted to read Krishna Lila, but he made the sacrifice. No, I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna make an irrefutable argument that will actually bring Lord Chaitanya's movement to the forefront of contemporary civilization. So he was very determined, very visionary. He was very clear in what was needed from his perspective of how the world needs to be changed, and it was very in line with. He would quote Prabhupada, and he would talk about how Prabhupada started the BI, and he put all the pieces together, and he made it clear that this was Prabhupada's desire, and so it was his obligation to fulfill Prabhupada's desire. So that's his desires for the world, very briefly. And then he also had desires for the devotees in general. I think I would say two main things. And one is the devotee care, which has already been touched on a lot. So I'll only say briefly that he felt devotees needed more care and they needed more loving exchanges. They needed to receive and give more and show more love to each other. And he felt that was lacking. He expressed that. He expressed that in no uncertain terms. And he wanted that. And so he exemplified that, as we've all been expressing, in a way that we can't imitate, but we all, I think, are inspired too, especially at this point, to try to take on that example as much as we can. And the other thing that he wanted for devotees, and this is where I'll borrow the word from Siddha Hari, this is where it becomes so-called contentious. And he did become contentious. He was afraid of becoming a heretic, as being cast out as heretical, because of his understanding of science in relationship to his understanding of Krishna consciousness and what Prabhupada presented. And so it becomes very sensitive. And I remember he even wrote to me and he sent me a copy of a new book called Shastra in the Fossil Record, which I would like to plug onto the chat if Ananda Kirtan and Siddha Hari allow me, or into one of these groups, because as I understand, Madhavendra Puri Prabhu had a very strong desire that the members of the movement had an emotionally and philosophically mature understanding of the scientific paradigm, and that it wasn't something that was blindly rejected simply out of what he called religious fundamentalism. So I would think, if we want to carry on his memory and his desires, I think that this book that he painstakingly wrote for the devotees, he wrote a book for the devotees so that they can understand the relationship between what he called Shastra and the fossil record, but basically between how we understand science from the conventional or traditional Gaudiya Vaishnav ISKCON perspective, and how science with integrity and the principles of the scientific method are not actually in contradiction, and that there's so much to be synthesized that he felt that pretty much only he could do. And he didn't say that out of pride, but because there's not very many scientifically trained devotees in ISKCON who had the time and the willingness to be able to do something like this. So he felt he was basically the only person who could do it. And so he was trying to merge those worlds together and show that they're not mutually exclusive. So yeah, I just wanted to say those things. I want to say what Madhavendra Puri Prabhu would want me to say. And, you know, he invested a lot of time into helping me understand how he understood things. And I also tried to invest my time into absorbing his understanding. And I had to admit at a certain point that, Prabhu, you are too advanced for me. And just like Local Ram Prabhu says, I realized he was a great devotee, but I did not realize how he was. maybe it's more to underestimate and not take not produce. Anyway, it is what it is, but yeah, I just want to. I've probably gone off track, but my hope is to convey the understanding that Madhavendra Puri Prabhu attempted to instill to me for the purpose of sharing it with others, and to it wasn't that he just told that to me just to make me also an enigmatic and an outlier. He didn't tell me these things and try to instill this understanding into me so that I would also become a supposed heretic. He installed these things into me because he wanted religious fundamentalism and contemporary civilization, speculation, science. So if the devotees permit me, we can share this, or I can share it, or somebody can share this Shastra and the fossil record. It's a bit heavy, and I think it requires, as I said, emotional and philosophical maturity. But for those who feel ready, I think this is the next step that he was envisioning for our society. Thank you for letting me speak, Prabhu, and please forgive any offenses. Hare Krishna.
That book can be found on his website, vedicchronology.org.
Okay.
And I'll type it into the chat so people can see how it's spelled.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Nikunja Bihari Prabhu, do you have anything to say? Okay. So I was informed by Lokaram Prabhu that they're going to try to do another session. He's going to try to organize another one. So I think just for the sake of how many people we'd have to facilitate in the next 20 minutes, I think, is there anyone else that would like to speak now that has not been able to speak? Okay. If not, then I think we'll stop there. I'm very deeply grateful for everyone who participated.
Prabhu, sorry. I was trying
Please
to
go ahead. Please.
just to finish up, I'm so honored and grateful to be in such a association of Vaishnavas. Just seeing the Vaishnavas gathered here, you can just ascertain what an exalted Vaishnav Sripad Madhavendra Puri Prabhu was and is. I look around and so many of the Vaishnavas here are the Vaishnavas that have inspired me or at one point or another held me by the hand and my Krishna consciousness. And to see that the common link between all of this is Madhavendra Puri Prabhu, it just makes my love for all of you even grow even more. But I just wanted to say this last thing. I saw him maybe a month or two ago, and I hadn't seen him in maybe 2 to 3 years. And I just threw myself in a room and I gave my obeisance and said, "Thank you so much, Prabhu, for instilling the love, the love I have for Shastra or whatever taste I have. Thank you so much, because I credit it to you and seeing how you experience Shastra. That is it. I didn't know that what I want until I saw it coming from you." And he said, "No, if you have any taste for Shastra, for Krishna Katha, it is due to the," I want to try and be very careful with words. He said, "This is due to the sacrifices you have made for Srila Prabhupada's movement." I think that said more about him and his taste than anything else. And to some degree, this is almost like the little secret he gave. And that last interaction with him is, to the degree we give that we in sacrifice we want to serve Srila Prabhupada to that degree. We have this absorption that we all we all experience through Madhavendra Puri Prabhu. So yeah, we've been given a great honor and a great blessing, and with that comes the great responsibility of sharing this whatever little bit. I mean, I can say for me a little bit, but I see so many exalted souls here. What we've received, and we can share that. But that his fearless, just I want to serve Srila Prabhupada's mission. I want to serve Mahaprabhu's mission. I was going to take that with me for the rest of my life. And I pray, dear Vaishnavas, dear Prabhus, please, let's help encourage each other and, be that love that he was for all of us. Let's be that for one another. Already in this, I've got to reconnect with so many of my god brothers, and now seeing so many Vaishnavas that, oh man, I want to reconnect with all of you and share that tenderness, share that love, share that brotherhood that he shared with us. So thank you so much. This is so inspiring. Thank you, Vaishnavas, and thank you so much, Sripad. Madhavendra Puri Prabhu, Ki Jai. Srila Prabhupada, Ki Jai.
Thank you all for participating in this.
Can I say a word for just a moment, please?
Oh yes, Alan.
I just wanted to thank you for organizing this. This is Alan Bernath, Steve's younger brother. And thank you to so many kind people for your most appreciated thoughts about our brother Madhavendra Puri Das. He was a moving person in your lives, and it makes us feel very appreciative to have been able to attend and hear your kind words. Thank you on behalf of my wife and I. Thank you again for organizing. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Leslie has posted Leslie is Madhavendra Puri Prabhu's sister. She said, thank you to every caring Krishna and spiritual brother who has helped me to see how compassionate, kind, giving, generous, and how far he transcended his physicality with his sheer vision and intellect. Thank you so much, Leslie and Alan, for participating. Your presence was deeply appreciated. Okay, thank you all very, very much.
Thank you.
And yeah, I think there'll be another offering happening amongst the devotees in Michigan, is what I gathered from Lokaram Prabhu. He's going to do his best to organize that in coordination with Deva Madhava Prabhu. So look out for announcements on that WhatsApp group. And thank you all very much. Hare Krishna, Sripad Madhavendra Puri Prabhu Ki Jai.
Thank you so much.
And try it one more time, because the soap is not even mixed with the clothes.
Thank you, Param, for organizing. Okay, Prabhu.
Maybe there'll be some more nectar.
Okay.
Eric, you Thomas. Oh my God.
How do you turn it on?
You don't, just wait. Nobody lost the lead. So we have this consensus for the YouTube. I'm touching it. Don't worry.
Well, I want to put us on mute.